All right, we should be actually live this time. Yes, I can see it this time. Hooray! So, how's it going, everyone? And welcome to another episode of No Excuses on YouTube.com with your favorite show host, Ara Still.
And Volacel, and no Fern, because today Fern is off taking care of family business. I believe some member of his family is getting married, so he's got organizational things to do in addition to being part of the celebrations, etc. So, yeah, he's left us to our own devices so that we can break everything as per usual.
Yep. Uh, we'll probably wander off in the weeds quite a bit this show because,
Implying that doesn't happen every show.
yeah, more so than normal with no Fern, and we don't have any weeks even to really keep us on track. I've got more of the same that I've been talking about, so I'll be able to talk about that. And Vol's been eaten by work, so we're going to go head over to Quarry Mill and do a bit of Palace of the Dead. Just to relax a little bit. But I can show this off. Got my glowy kitty.
I mean, it's no Swift Zulian tiger.
No, but he's a glowy kitty. I finally
That
got
is
him.
uncomfortably similar in color palette to Cuddles.
Yep. May or may not have subconsciously made me want to get him. But yeah, he is finally done. I got the framer kit too, so I don't need to do Eureka Orthos anymore. I don't mind doing it though. There's quite a bit of money to be made from those gold sacks, and other people still need their kitties. Vol's the closest with 2 runs, finished twice,
Yep.
so I can help. I'll be helping him get his kitty probably in the future, but now I don't have to pressure myself to get the clears because uh, everything, all the collectible stuff is gotten. So we will head over to 40 mil. And I really did feel pressured to get it done as quick as possible because you just can't forget anything in there, especially when solo.
No, because you will get shouted at by a monkey.
Yep. Or you'll get hit by a cone after a giant point blank AoE or something weird, or you'll forget that the cone on this thing is absolutely huge. You got an open slot?
I actually have not checked because I'm not used to having to check. I don't have an open slot. I have a floor 141 and a floor 71. Let's get rid of the 71.
Yep. So I have my game sound turned on. I will turn it down a hair on the mixer so that it doesn't overwhelm the stream. But the music is turned off so we don't get copyright struck. All right, you got a slot open?
Yep.
All right, I'm taking us in. I had a floor 150 mech slot here that I nuked, so we could do Palace instead. But
There's a lot less brain work required in here compared to
no, we could both just
Eureka Orthos.
we could both split up and go run around if we wanted to, all the way up until like floor 90, and even then we probably could. Yeah, but it's not as big a deal if you hit a trap and things go bad. So, but yeah, we're just gonna take it easy this week in here because I need a brief break from taking people through Eureka Orthos because I'm just brain drained on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've hit it pretty hard since it came out. Like maybe, well, I mean, I suppose on the scale of the normal degree of sweatiness of some of the community who do deep dungeons, you probably don't even rank. But
Yeah,
compared to normal folks, yeah, you hit it pretty damn hard.
for the amount of time I've got, I went pretty hard on it because it was my current project. It was also the only thing in in Walker to sit and grind out.
Yeah, more's the pity. And we talked about that at length on the past couple shows, but it doesn't look like anything's going to change. And I'm sort of concerned about that. Like, I mean, I suppose it's you can make a very compelling argument this is the same as it's always been, in the sense that, well, he's probably just taking all his cues from the Japanese player base, who sometimes have, strangely orthogonal concerns to the rest of the world. But yeah, it's certainly disappointing, but I wonder if it's just that to some extent the momentum is kind of all over the place right now because they've sort of come to an end of an era with one thing. Half the attention of the director is on a totally other project, which is nearing completion and probably wrapping up quite a bit of attention right now.
Hmm.
And basically, they're going to have to. The next patch is going to be the closing of a story, essentially, and the laying of the fundamental groundwork for a new story. And I'm sort of interested to see how they will launch the next expansion story wise because they have to build from nothing again in a sense.
Hmm. But
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to be sure.
yeah, I'm a little worried about their current gameplay philosophy with uh, with the way they're taking the game. It feels like a lot of stuff's getting homogenized between the classes. It feels like they're stepping away from having MMO style stuff in an MMO, like general grindy content. There's a lot of stuff that's worrying on the horizon, but they've pulled out enough in the past that I think they'll realize when things are going bad and be able to pull themselves out of it, even if it takes an expansion or so.
Yeah, I think that there is a certain amount of recalibration that will be required because when you're telling sort of an epic story the way they have for the past, 4 or 5 chapters, you can run on momentum quite a bit. Like one thing leads to another, and you build on what you've got before. But they're gonna have to get back to basics to some extent going forward.
Yeah, they're gonna have to really sit down and figure out where they want to take the story. They can't coast on people staying subbed and playing every patch like they used to when they were invested. And the bar to entry back when the original Final Fantasy story started was pretty low, and the game had already flopped, so anything was an improvement. And people were willing to stick around for the long haul, or and come back over time with the previous story because it was just a totally different environment. Nowadays, I wonder if people have the attention span for another slow start if they try to do that again.
Yeah. I don't know if they do, because the environment is different. Like if you a lot of what made Final Fantasy distinctive was how much space there was between, say, the way World of Warcraft tells an MMO story and the way everybody else does.
Hmm.
Like they leaned into the RPG part of MMORPG, and that was not the done thing at the time. Like the only other one that attempted to do that was Old Republic.
Yeah,
With mixed success. Old Republic had some really popular story arcs, but they toward the present day, from what I hear, they've sort of run into the same sort of issue of that Final Fantasy 14 in its most current incarnation has, which is to say, people are just constantly complaining about a content drought because you can only produce so much story, and once that you've done those quests well, what's left of the story, sort of thing. And they are being an EA property. They're sort of um, they're captured by uh, that constant content production logic where you need to have some way of justifying constant engagement from everybody, and the idea of anybody not being subscribed for a month is anathema.
yeah. While Yoshi P's idea of you can take a break whenever you want is very healthy, I think, for the player. It is gonna run into a bit of an issue now that the higher ups and the bean counters have seen the expansion numbers from Endwalker when WoW went kaboom.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also that there is a very fine line between making people feel all right about not playing so that they take a break and making people want to not play because there's nothing to do. Like there is a very fine distinction between those two states of play. And I think that they're sort of falling into that crevasse at the moment
Yeah,
where we have transitioned from people don't mind not playing because they don't feel pressured to people don't feel any draw to actually log in if they aren't part of a particular type of currently focused on content.
Chest over here. Oh, I'm a frog.
Oh, good work.
But yeah, I'm worried that we are falling onto the later half of there's no reason to log in. At least for current expansion. I mean,
Yeah, I do think that this is sort of like a psychological halo effect of the loss of momentum that comes from closing out a big story. Like everybody's sort of like drifting a little bit because the great purpose has come to an end.
yeah, the that and I really do think the fact that Yoshi P and some of the team are focused on another big game release right now that's Squeenix is probably demanding their attention on is a big headliner release at that is probably what's causing as many shoes as it is right now with the way things have been very systematic this expansion and very homogenous. I
We're
mean,
supposed to be talking about our weeks.
yeah, I just tangent a bit there because I guess we can call that part of my week. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the deep dungeon is just so happens to be one of those things that is well calibrated to keep people engaged for an extended period of time because it's a challenge that you can overcome that is dangled some distance in front of you. Like even if anybody who isn't going to hit deep dungeon at least as hard as you is going to take a very long time to get 4 clears.
yeah, and even then, it took me how many months?
Yeah, and I never would get 4 clears if it weren't for the fact that you were so keen that you learned it inside out. Like, because I just wouldn't bother. Like, it's not that I don't enjoy it, but I don't have the necessary level of focus to hit one piece of content over and over like that in an intense period. Like, while I am more than happy to play the same volume of game, the reality is that with Deep Dungeon, if you don't stay there for an extended period of time without leaving, you aren't going to learn it deeply enough to be successful.
Yeah, it's one of those things for people with that special kind of autism that just lets them do one thing forever when they put their brain to it, and that just ain't for everybody. And even then, there is an element of randomness to it. I guess I can just do the deep dungeon part of my week in full. Um, where the point of me going in solo again was I wanted to see how hard it would be now that I really know the place because I got 4 clears and still wanted to get the framer kit because it's a collectible and you only need to clear once to get it. And
Yeah, let's be real about it. You wanted to see what it was like when you didn't have plebs like me and Abo and Fern dragging you down.
so the clear times with you guys when I'm taking you with me, there's a different calculation that goes on in my head. Uh, my major time loss is gonna be if any of you guys die. I'm not too worried about the mob kill times because they're sped up significantly with 2 people there. But what I am worried about is being able to quickly and efficiently sneak around the rooms to skip mobs with groups of players, and whether or not I'll have to waste time clearing to the raising cairn, which and making it open, which often takes many more kills than open in the passage. So that's the kind of calculation that goes in when you guys are with me, and where do I need to make up time to account for that? When it's me and just myself, 2 things are in my favor uh, that aren't there when I'm taking a group. The first, I just got silenced. Um, the first calculation is I can know when a mob is going to attack and where it's going to attack because I can I've got the aggro. It's not going to throw its mechanic on another random party member, and it's not going to de-aggro me and throw its mechanics on another player. So I know exactly where every attack's going to go and can perfectly position and plan for it.
And then there are also ones like the ones that raw and kill you that just become non-entities when you're by yourself.
Yeah.
You know the what are they called? That behemoth model
Uh, the
in the last floor set.
the Zagnals.
Yeah, Zagnals. Like Zagnals are a joke when you're by yourself
Yeah.
compared to the mess that they can make if you're with other people.
Yeah. There are plenty of monsters. There aren't too many, but there are enough monsters like that that have mechanics that just don't function with one person. They just don't. They don't do anything, and Zagnals are
And
one of
then
them.
then there's things like the kelpies and that will just they'll go wild given half a chance
Yeah,
if they've got lots of targets to choose from.
deciding who they're going to gallop to is a bit annoying when you're with players because you don't know where they're going to drop the AOE and how that player is going to run. But if you're alone, you know exactly where they're going to go and where they're going to drop that stupid puddle, and you can put that puddle somewhere out of the way and make sure you're ready to move in time. Uh, so there are those kind of things that make it easier while solo, and being able to only have to drag one person through a room sneakily is much easier than having to drag multiple people through a room sneakily. You got a lot of friends.
Yes, I did. I just ignored everything that I was running past.
Yeah.
It did not work out so well for me. I don't know why my work laptop is being so loud. I'm not sure I want to know. I'm pretty sure I didn't open my inbox because I didn't want alerts.
Oh dear. So yeah, there are those things that make it faster, but the big drawback is everything takes twice as long to kill.
At least twice as long.
Yeah, because there are uptime problems when you're solo as well. Where if oftentimes if a mob has a mechanic where one person has to move, the other person can still be punching it. This is not the case for
If
if
you're
you're
a melee
solo.
character and you've got a monster that's going to use Scythe Tail or something,
Yeah,
like you just have to go off target for a bit.
it makes it way more difficult to parse out there. Um, also, there are just you have less options for dealing with targets. Don't have a sleep, you don't have a stun unless you're playing tank. You don't have or you don't have an interrupt. So
I'm burned. I'm burned.
more ferned. So you gotta work with a more limited tool set there. This is we gotta go turn anyway. You fast fern.
Oh boy.
So yeah, there are other calculations that make mob kill times longer, but this just means you have to be more careful when you pull. Because unlike this place, uh,
Where we can just clown it up non-stop.
yeah, it also has a much lower respawn time, so you're allowed to be more careful about what you pull as long as you know the aggro types. It also spawns way less enemies per floor after floor 30 than Palace does. Like Palace, as you can see right now, we've murdered like every time we run through here, we've killed like an entire Eureka Orthos floor sets worth of random dudes on our way, just bumbling our way through here in like 2 floors. So you don't have to worry as much about the raw amount of mobs that are everywhere in Eureka Orthos. So there are advantages to playing solo, and there are advantages to being in a group. Generally, I find it more fun to play in a group, but less stressful while solo because more stuff is controlled. So I don't mind the stress of playing in a group, but it is something I kind of want to be down for before I go into it. But if somebody like asks me to go into Eureka Orthos, I'm not going to say no. If they want to go work on their kitty or try and make some progress, yeah, I'll go help them with that.
Yeah,
But
well, unlike certain pieces of content, it does reward you.
yeah, there are still gold sacks and there's still money in them gold sacks. So yeah, it's a decent good bit of content there. Can't that rage because we got no items. Let's just
I don't have ether pool maxed, so
oh you don't
no.
did you get a thing or did you just never max your Aether pool for Palace?
I think I got a hilt or something a long time ago,
Oh okay.
thinking that I would be playing more of this place than I actually was because Orthos came out.
Yeah. So yeah. Uh the real purpose of going in there solo though. Well not the real purpose, but a big reason I decided to do another solo run was to get a little bit of data. So I would put this up on the screen if I'd have thought ahead of time here. But instead I will just throw it in live show chat. Um,
Just take care of the floor for by yourself for a bit because I've just got a text from one of my technicians. They want me to check something.
all right. So I'm gonna post 3 images from a program you totally don't know about, and don't need to worry about how they came to be because Yoshi would get very sad. But I was curious as to how much damage each demi-clone actually did because this bugged me. It's very hard to get a read on how well those demi-clones are doing unless you've got a real long time for them to beat on one target. So I booted up ACT and had it running the entire time I was in the dungeon, and just recording a log file for everything. And after I cleared it, I booted the log file up and decided to just take a look at what the heck the damage of the demi-clones actually was. Uni, unsurprisingly, her test was unfortunately on my part not super great and she looks more inflated than she is by a little bit. It's not the worst. It's still a pretty good read on her DPS. But if you're just looking at the size of the graphs instead of the actual numbers, it looks like she still does an appreciable amount of damage. But I flubbed my rotation pretty hard and lost about 15% of my usual damage. So that number discrepancy will be a bit bigger, quite a bit bigger usually. So she winds up doing in the ballpark of 3,000 DPS. So not nothing when the player is pulling around 9.5 on a DPS with strength. And then we're talking about me, so I'm not a raider. I don't min max. I certainly don't min max in Deep Dungeon, and I'm very focused on mechanics. So there are holes in my rotation in places, but the big thing to keep in mind there is that is probably more reflective of what your average experience is going to be going into Deep Dungeon. So a DPS with strength is looking at about 9 to 10k DPS somewhere in there on the boss, and Uni did less than a third of that. So it's
She's
not
trying. She's a support caster. Don't be mean.
So it's not nothing. If you just want to speed a fight up a little bit, I mean, 30% of your damage ain't bad. So so you can totally take it, but it's not going to make or break the world there. Doga was also about where I expected him to be. Doga wound up doing right in the ballpark of around 6 to 7k, which is a little less than a strength DPS class without a strength.
It's a solid contribution.
Yeah, he does an appreciable amount of damage. And then you got Onion Knight. I will tell you what Onion Knight does when I'm not in the middle of my Wildfire combo. You will, however, notice on the graph, the bigger number does not say my name or you next to it. It says your boy Onion Knight.
Onion Bro is a Chad.
Yeah, Onion Bro did almost 12k DPS to my 9.67. So he, in fact, and I had strength going, so he, in fact, does about 30% more than a DPS with strength. So, yeah, Onion Knight doesn't mess around at all. So that's, if you're ever wondering what the relative values of those dudes in terms of their damage output is, there you go. You have that as a pretty good test case for it. And these were on the floor 70, 80, and 99 boss. Or no, sorry, it's on the 70, 90, and 99 boss. So yeah. And I still blew through that place solo with everything fresh in my head with no problems. It was It was a total pushover. This it surprised me how much of a pushover it was. I kind of knew it would be because that place is all mechanics and very little on DPS. But it was really surprising just how smooth some floors went despite very bad palm loadouts. I had a false start run where I just got nothing for palms. It was truly extraordinarily bad palm luck. And I just I had to reset it because I had no dreads, no onion knights, and ran out of time on like the 70 or 80 set. But the next one, palm luck wasn't much better, and I still got a ton of floors that were really really bad with like 7 to 11 kill count clears, especially in the later sets. But it still was perfectly manageable as long as you knew the mechanics. So Eureka Orthos, if you put the time into it, you can totally clear it. It's not like the other deep dungeons where you can just get palm screwed. Like you need a certain number of steals to do Palace and Heaven on High. And Heaven on High is also very Magicite dependent on how fast the run is and how good it goes. Like how much Magicite do you get? Do you get any Elder Magicite that lets you skip the last two bosses? Stuff like that.
Where's the site? Where's the site? What line is site on? I can't find it.
I got it. It's the second palm.
Right.
So yeah, that's probably all my going hard on Eureka Orthos that I'm gonna do. But yeah, I had fun with it for the time I was really going at it. I liked it in retrospect. I think better than the other deep dungeons, just because you can really feel like you're making progress in there.
Well, a given floor set, and my impression is that for a given floor set or even a given mob, there's more of a it's more of a cohesive, objective focused challenge to overcome, because there's not in a very real sense there's not very much difference between any two given floors of Palace of the Dead except for the statistics of the monsters.
Yeah.
But the challenges presented by a floor set of Orthos have a particular character to them. Like the Harambe wall is very distinctive, for instance.
Yeah.
Like that is a particular thing in Orthos with its own particular character and its own particular behavior that it encourages.
Yeah,
And that's not really true of Palace to the same extent.
And then you had the 50 and the or no, is it the 50? Yeah, it's the 50. It's the 40s and the 50s that have the heavy emphasis on line of sight that you have to use. And then you've got, yeah, and sharks and yeah, just in general, there are very defined batches of challenges in those in Eureka Orthos. In Palace, there are some mobs you just straight up can't pull, and some mobs you need steel to, but it's all because of their damage output. It has nothing to do with what types of mechanics they have. Like, you just can't pull a Flood Dragon in the later floor sets. Period, end. If you pull it, you're dead. You can't pull an Anzu. If you pull an Anzu, you're dead. Doesn't matter if you have steel or not. It'll just kill you. But in Eureka Orthos, every single mob has a solution. It's like a puzzle that you can solve. All you gotta do is figure out what the solution is, and then do it. But yeah, it's in that sense, because it's so big and there are so many little puzzles to solve the whole way through. It keeps you engaged with the content for quite a while. So we're talking, what did it take me 2.5 months to get my solo clear, 2 solo clears, I guess, plus enough extra tomestones from running you guys through to get the kitty and the framer kit. It came out early March, right? And we're now approaching the end of May. We're just over the halfway part of May.
Oh, it feels like it came out last week.
Ow. We didn't, how'd the cairn not open? We killed, like, everything but one dude.
There's no dudes, man.
There it goes. But yeah, I had fun progressing it. I don't know if you had as much fun progressing it with me while I was dragging you through to get extra
Well,
clears.
I like doing it. Like I like it much more than I like the other deep dungeons, especially Heaven on High. I feel a little bit lost. Like, and I find Palace and Orthos to be more. It might just be a function of the amount of time I've spent in them, but I feel more at home in those two. Like, I feel like I know what I should be doing better than I
Yeah,
do in Heaven on High, which sort of feels like a halfway house between the two somehow. Um, but I enjoy doing it. I just have zero inclination to do it by myself. Like there's just nothing about that experience seems rewarding to me because I know that I simply cannot focus my attention for that long.
yeah. It's the whole thing is a giant attention check, and how long you can stay focused on one thing.
Like,
If you
it would just be an exercise in frustration for me because I'm fairly sure I just can't do it. Like I'll get distracted by something, or I'll lose interest, or I'll get bored for like because I tend to go through phases of being bored with a thing. It might only last half an hour, but my attention just won't be on it, and I'll just fail. I'll fail outright. Like there's too many things about my personal psychology are not compatible with solo deep dungeon.
Yeah, it is very compatible with mine, where I like focusing on one thing and just going hard on it, and
But
do not
you've
have a
got a
problem.
strength. Oh, we can't use strength anyway because it's no item.
Yep. So we
Bull.
run. So it works perfectly for me. Um, a few tips for people that do want to try and solo it. Just in general tips. Number one that I figured out: don't overthink things. Just go. Time is going to be your more pressing concern on the later floors. The only thing you need to really stop and think about are two things: are there any patrols coming? Have I checked all the rooms immediately around the starting room to be sure that one of them doesn't lead to the exit? And are Harambe's about to yell and kill me?
Ook, ook.
Yeah, if the answer to those three things is yes, yes, no, then just go.
Rage.
Hulking out. And just don't sit there and try and plan an optimal route through a room. Just pull something. We got knockback disabled. Can you pop a Serenity?
Oh, I didn't even notice. What line is Serenity on though?
Second line, second to last palm.
It's our only Serenity. Oh, well, we can get another one.
Yeah, we're still early. So yeah, that's your first tip. The second tip is just accept you're gonna die. You're gonna lose a run that was looking really good to something dumb. You're gonna accidentally stay into the Manticore or the not the Manticore cone. The what the heck is that thing called? In the Minotaur cone, and you're going to or you're going to get caught by a line of sight mechanic, or you're going to or something bad is going to happen. You're not going to know what it is until it happens, but something dumb and obvious that you could have avoided and you should have avoided is going to get you. It's going to have slipped your brain, or you're going to not react quick enough to it, or you're going to be the wrong type of
Freeze drunk.
headspace. But it's going to happen. So just accept that going in and don't get mad at it, because if you get mad, you're never going to make it through there.
If you
And
get mad, you lose.
just take the bonk on the head and don't make the same mistake again. Floors 1 to 30 suck. There's nothing you can do about that. Do not blow any palms of affluence or fortune until floor 7, because none of the good palms can drop until floor 7. If you have max Aether Pool going in and you're just trying to get your solo clear and not exchanging it for items, Do not check any silver chests until then, unless you're hoping they explode so they do damage to mobs. So, because you can't get any demi-clones before 4-7, I'm pretty sure as well. So, I've never seen one. Use your resources. Don't hoard everything, but at the same time, only use what you need. So, if you got 3 demi-clones sitting around, it's better to use a demi-clone at the start of a floor rather than the end of a floor, because you'll get full use out of it, especially if you're just trying to get rid of an Uni, which is unfortunate, but just a fact of her being Uni. Sometimes you want to trade her up, and sometimes you just got a ton of Unis, and you have to get rid of them. And you cannot dismiss a demi-clone once it's summoned, so you've got to just use her. And using her early is going to be much better for you than waiting until later, because she'll at least be able to put out some damage. So just use her proactively to filter her out. Hold on to your Onion Knights. If you're carrying around Onion Knights, there's no reason to check silvers and trade up. If you're doing,
As we have covered, he's a Chad.
yeah, he is too valuable to give away. He's not super rare. He's not like, the Odin Magicite that you may see once every 3 or 4 runs in Heaven on High, but he's still fairly rare.
You need that administrator fight to be as short as possible.
Yeah, it's just
the longer you are in there, the higher the chance you'll make a mistake.
Yeah, there's just too much to keep an eye out for there. Even after I've done that fight 5 times now. Well, 6 times technically, successfully 7 times with 1 unsuccessful attempt on him.
I've only survived it once.
I still treat him as the hardest boss in there, because while Excalibur is big and flashy and has a lot of mechanics, none of them are as dangerous as what the heck.
Yeah, that fight is definitely designed just to be a cool capstone fight and not designed to kick your butt the way Administrator obviously is.
Yeah, Administrator just is the biggest drain late into the run, and I absolutely recommend saving a Onion Knight just for him. If you only have 1 Onion Knight going into the Administrator room, blow it on Administrator. Don't save it for Excalibur. Use Doga will serve you just fine on Excalibur. Just be ready to pop a few extra potions. So yeah, there's that. If you're having trouble with whatever class you're trying it on, pick a ranged DPS. Or actually, just pick Mech. Mech has 2 major benefits in all deep dungeons that continue to be true in Eureka Orthos. Number 1, it can kite crap. You can run away from stuff and still keep full uptime, and not have to worry about being in range of melee type mechanics. Number 2, it has an interrupt, so you don't have to deal with pox. Because once you pass floor 60, all the mimics start coming from gold chests, and you need to open gold chests to get palms. But if you're playing a caster, you've got nothing you can do about them. They can't be slept, and you have no interrupt or stun. You can't stun them if you're playing a melee DPS, because gold chests are immune to stun, or gold mimics are immune to stun. But you can interrupt it. And this means if you are really in a bad palm position, you can still open every single gold chest on your way if you're playing mech without having to worry about getting pox, which reduces your damage somewhere between 10 and 15%. And while it's going, you also don't regen HP. And you take a not particularly dangerous, but obnoxious dot the whole time, forcing you to chain chug potions. Which, while a bigger problem in like Heaven on High, is still obnoxious in to remember to do, especially because Eureka Ortho specifically doesn't mandate that you chain chug pots all the time. So it's very easy to forget if you've got pox on you. Save your storms on the later floors. Don't blow them on Dreadbeast. If you can sneak around a Dreadbeast, just sneak around it. Don't waste your time or waste your storms and your lethargy/witching. Just killing the Dreadbeast. Yeah, it's nice to get a extra sack and to get a free gold chest from the kill. But generally speaking, they're not worth it. because storms are much better served whenever you get the auto regeneration turned off floors, because it means you can just you
A
get a
free
free
floor.
yeah, you get a free floor clear. You make up a ton of time on a floor set that's going a little shaky, and you can give your brain a rest for about 5 minutes. And yeah, try not to use serenities unless you have to. Serenities are always the most valuable palm, and this is doubly so in Eureka Orthos because there are no mobs that require steel, so there's no palm to trump Serenity in terms of how valuable it is. So, depending on what class you play, and with mech, you can get away with a no abilities floor. It hurts, and you're not going to kill stuff particularly fast, but you're not crippled like some classes are. You still have access to chainsaw, air anchor, and drill, all while you have no abilities. And while that means you can't summon your robot, you can't use hypercharge, and and you can't use your off global abilities. That doesn't really matter because you can still pump out enough damage to get through the floor just a bit slower than normal. So you're not totally in a crippled position. No items is pretty much the only thing that's an auto serenity on the later floors because it can just spell disaster and will slow you down way too much. And all the guides that have the big long screes about how the mobs in here do so little damage, that is under the assumption you have a sustaining potion rolling on every single pull, because the people that are writing those guides are deep dungeon aficionados that have played way too much deep dungeon for their own good, and are used to that just being the case on especially later floor sets of Palace and Heaven on High, where a single auto attack from a non-dangerous mob that doesn't have any special notes about its damage output does like half your health and damage. Yeah, the mobs don't hit that hard, but if you... Oh, I found a coffer. But, yeah, the mobs don't hit that hard, but, they still have some damage output, and some of the double autoers, like the courses that patrol the 80 to 90 set, can really catch you off guard with their damage, or the sharks that patrol the early 50s in that floor set. So don't neglect your potions and watch for auto attack damage. You'll learn as you go what mobs you need to pop a potion for, and which ones it's generally safer to pop a potion for. But that just comes with practice and learning the mobs. So you'll get there eventually. And yeah, that's really all I can recommend. Is just because most of Eureka Orthos is going to be mob knowledge. Do you know what every single mob does? And this is going to be what decides whether or not you clear the place. Do you know what every boss does? Do you have a plan going into every single boss ahead of time? Like, I know exactly how I'm going to dodge all of Excalibur's crap before he does it. You need to have that kind of level of knowledge going in, especially solo. Like, I know whenever he does Caliburni, regardless of what version it is, the one that's in the demo phase or the later phases, I'm going to run behind him. And then I'm going to wait in the middle until he does Paradoxum to see what element the swords change to, so I can go stand next to the opposite element before looking at him to see what element he's going to cast to know if I need to switch or not. So that I can make the switch easier. Like, all this is knowledge that you have to have going in ahead of time. So watching videos on the bosses will definitely help you out a lot. And just go in with a game plan and stick to that game plan unless you just effed up and your game plan ain't gonna work. And then you can play the indie ploy and try and improv it. But otherwise, just go in and do what you told yourself you're gonna do, and don't stray from that plan too much. So yeah, that's that with Eureka Orthos. Just if you're interested in it and it's keeping your attention in these droughty times for Endwalker, keep plugging away at it. You'll get your Once and Future Queen title eventually too. It's really not that bad compared to the other deep dungeons, because you can see the visible progress each time you go through floors will be easier than they were before, unless you're just really playing on tilt. I had a brief stint where I started playing on tilt and was dying on floors I had no business dying on. But I took a break for a day or so, and then came back and started again with a clearer head, and it started going much better. So yeah, that's what I got for recommendations. You don't have as much solo experience as I do, but any just general tips I may not think of, haven't run it as much.
Hmm. Um. It's so much more about your personal mindset than it is about anything other than like there are two factors. There are your personal disposition, your mental disposition, and your um raw knowledge. It's worth doing the constant reviews of the mechanics simply because the length of the journey is so long that you're going to mix things up if you just try and rely on your memory alone, unless you already have a humongous amount of experience. So you might as well just play it safe and check the guides. Even if it seems like drudgery, almost every time that I rewatch those guides, I would remember something or notice something that I didn't really pay enough attention to before. Um, and also, a lot of the content in the guide gets recontextualized after a couple of times of actually attempting to do it,
Yeah,
and will stick in your mind more because you've got some personal experiences to tether those recommendations to, whether or not you agree with them. Um, but mostly don't drink too much alcohol because it makes it a lot harder.
well, makes all the bosses harder except for Kitty. Kitty, you just follow Ari around.
Also, I feel that like having tried it when it comes to duo work, uh, if you have a weak link, if you're a weak link like me, do Dancer. You get so many get out of jail free cards. Once you have got used to the AoEs attached to dancing and attached to Starfall and that sort of thing, um, and you are past the point where you're accidentally pulling things, um, the extra dashes that you've got will trivialize a lot of mechanics that will otherwise kill you. So if you know you're the weak link and you've got somebody porting you along the way I did, Dancer will make your life a lot easier because you will get to see mechanics, how they play out without instantly dying. It's basically like having training wheels on. Because if you're a little bit slow on the draw, like let's say you don't have much experience or your ping is not great, those little dashes that dancers are equipped with, provided you don't waste them, you will always have them around to save you when you need them.
Yep. Alrighty. Uh, and with that, unless we're actively in Eureka Orthos doing it on the show or something, I think I'm going to put personal runs on hold, obviously, because I don't have any major goals there anymore. I'm not insane like the super crazy deep dungeon people, nor do I have the
Playing
time.
for score. You don't
Yeah,
want to play for score?
I'm not gonna play for score, and I'm not gonna play for Omni clearing.
For Omniclear.
Yeah, it's not
What, you
happening.
don't want to see what it's like as Astrologian?
We did that once for about 3 seconds in the floor 30s, and we're like, yeah, well, no.
It takes so long to kill anything.
Yeah, it's
Oh my goodness me.
the amount of retardation that has to go into playing Astro in there is just silly. But uh but yeah, it's I think it's going on hold. I've enjoyed my time with it. Uh, in future, when they do a deep dungeon again, I hope they build off what they did here, learn from a few of their mistakes, maybe bump the auto attack damage a little bit to make even because every floor set has the easy mob, and
Well, more than that, I want them to devise a way to make healing classes relevant instead of like, this is like just the hard mode that you've got to do for your Omniclear, which is what's basically they do now.
yeah,
Like that's the only role that healers play is to provide hard mode to Omniclearers.
yeah. If everybody's got a at like 40 potions in your group, there's zero reason to bring a healer, and even then, not everybody needs that many. Like you're just not going to take enough damage. to warrant having a healer. So
Yeah, but since I like healing classes generally, like it's just sort of disappointing that I don't really have any excuse to take them, because it would be nice for there to be a deep dungeon scenario where, you know, you can actually get some mileage out of the various utilities that healers bring to a group, as opposed to everything being about DPS or whatever. Like, technically speaking, I suppose if you had a sage or a scholar who was prepared for it, you could ameliorate one bad hit by blowing all your cooldowns and putting up a shield, but that's not really, it's not really a practical form of utility.
yeah, and even then, that's only going to work on bosses. It's on trash. The damage is just too high for anybody to reasonably mitigate. Like maybe if they crit shield a tank or something for to double their effective HP, they can take a trash piece of trash as mechanic. But in general, you just can't afford to be hit by the trash stuff anyway. It's all going to kill you. And unless you've got a tank that's just pulling everything to do the mega pulls, he's just not going to take enough auto attack damage to warrant having a healer. A potion can offset it.
Generally, apart from administrator, I rather like the boss design in there. Like, in a way, it feels weirdly anticlimactic that the trash can kill you so much more easily than the bosses can, but the bosses themselves are fun fights, generally speaking.
Yeah,
So I think that the design has done quite well in there. Apart from administrator, I feel like administrator is in the wrong place in the run. Like,
yeah,
floor 90 is just a cruel place to put such a tricky boss that has you know, there's basically one safe route through that boss, and if you happen to read it wrong, well, you're toast and enjoy doing the bottom floors all over again.
yeah. Kalia or the Hydra should be bumped up to 90, and Administrator should be swapped with should be dumped down to like 70, and Eterna should be the floor 80 boss. Although if they did that, Eterna needs some help as a boss. I like the kitty, I like the fight, but once you know her, she's totally free. Because it's literally just, do you know where the safe spots are? If yes, boss is free. You don't need to pop anything if you got enough time to kill her. Otherwise, you're gonna have some fun with that boss. And by fun, I mean you're gonna die almost immediately. You need to know the safe spots for Eterna ahead of time. She's probably the least sight readable boss in there, but she's also the most straightforward boss in there once you get your act together and you've done her a few times. And you can just go in there and just like, oh, is it safe spot time yet? Which safe spot is it? Is the kitty glowy or not glowy? So she's the only boss I really feel conflicted about, but all the other ones I genuinely enjoy doing. Like I liked
I don't
when,
really, I don't really like the robot watermelon. I feel like it takes forever.
oh yeah, not the robot watermelon. For some reason, his health is scaled way too effing high for a boss that's you're not even level 90 yet with. I don't know why his health is scaled so high. I would not be mad if in a future patch they just reduced his HP by 20%.
Maybe he was designed for level 90 and they just forgot to scale his health down.
That's what it feels like. Like the boss just has so much more HP relative to the damage you can output than any other boss in there. It's like they expected you to be able to get to like level 88 or 90 in the first floor set in the first few runs and just forgot. when they changed the level spread a little bit, and they just forgot about Robot Watermelon. So yeah, that's your boy the Robot Watermelon. Uh, the second boss takes a few attempts, but you'll be doing him so much and so frequently that you'll figure it out eventually. Figure out where to run, but he's
I actually urgently have to go to a bathroom break. My stomach is upset at me. I'm just going to go stand on the exit can, try and come up with something to say in the meantime.
all right.
I will BRB everybody.
Yeah, the second boss, once you figure it out, you're good to go. And I'll save the other bosses for when Ball gets back because we're kind of using this to bounce the weeks. I pull random crap to try and fish for chests. Serenities or something. I haven't even really been paying attention to what we're getting. But yeah. So yeah. You've heard me wax on about the various details of Eureka Orthos and tell you about my journey through it. But it's all going to be up to you and whether or not you want to put the time in to learn it and how quick you are at learning this type of thing. Even if you've got the attention span to pull it off, it's going to be a lot on how quickly you can make a mistake and learn from that mistake. Is a way I would put it, as well as how quickly you can like check a video and understand what they're saying, or read a guide and understand what they're saying. A lot of this is just basic Final Fantasy mechanics that if you've done any kind of medium tier content or rating, you'll have a grasp of. Bear trying to eat Vaul. But yeah, that is that's all for Eureka Orthos there. This is a bit early for it, but now that I've gone through it, I'm happy to answer questions about it, or even take people through it if you're on the data center. So if you're curious about it, I am going to require you get on Discord because I'm not taking anybody through there that's not on voice chat, because I'll need to scream at you to get out of stuff. But if you're on Primal and need a tour guide, I don't mind playing tour guide. But yeah, it's interesting. And taking people through and playing tour guide is a very interesting experience because they don't know what they're doing when you're going through, but you do, and you know exactly what's going to kill them or what's most likely to kill them on each thing on the floor set. Like if there's a chimera, and deciding what to pull changes when you know this, because it's like, yeah, I could pull that chimera, I could probably do it just fine, but Vol's going to die to it. So what I find myself doing is finding ways to either only pull the chimeras when there's lethargy, or just don't pull them at all. But this is obviously easier said than done with the late floor chimeras because they're patrols. And the early floor chimeras, I had to come up with a really dumb mnemonic that's so corny there's no way anybody could forget it, and it just kind of worked out. I am floundering here, Vol. Where are you? So yeah. So there's your email topic of the week. Is I'm now done with my solo adventures and personal progress through Eureka Orthos. But if you have any questions or have done it yourself and would like to give me your experiences on it, I will happily hear them and tell you why you're wrong. I'm not sure what your opinions are, but mine are better. So, okay. Other than that, big part of the reason I've been doing that, as I said before, I'm not interested in the rating scene in this game. It's too scripted. I just do not care all that much for a environment that's scripted as hard as the rating scene is in this game, with everybody already knowing exactly what they're going to do before they go into the boss fight. Very little reactions to stuff. I'm also not very interested in the way the raids actually play out, with all of them being dance fights. I'm just with the real min-max focused performance for the Savage and stuff, and allowing very little wiggle room for any kind of player input or creativity. So I just haven't really got into it. So I don't have that to progress through. I'm starting to run up to a wall where the only remaining big projects in the game for grinds and stuff I can collect are stuff that it's not realistic to do all at once and has to be worked on over time, like your orchestrion rolls or whatever, or it's stuff I just don't want to do, like the original Eureka. I just don't want to do those grinds, so I'm not prioritizing them. But But yeah, it's unfortunate that we're in that situation, and I've put quite a bit of time into the other deep dungeons, but Eureka Orthos was the first one I cleared because I just want anything else to really work on right now in Endwalker. With the lack of relic weapon to progress on, I don't have a reason to go do older content or any of the content I've already completed. I can't use the relic weapons as an excuse for that, and I can't really do anything with that requires big group play to and work on stuff with that because I don't play with a big group. I play with Fern, Ball, and Abo, and usually not all at once together because everybody's on a different days. So, more realistically, I'm stuck with stuff that can be done with a small number of people, and even then, I'm not on every day. So, I just don't have the makeup there to really make it happen. So it was a bit unfortunate that there wasn't any type of long term grind introduced in Endwalker to really drag me back into that style of thing. But thankfully, we did get Eureka Orthos, and it did last basically an entire half patch cycle, where it lasted me until a few days before the drop of 6.4, all the way from wherever we started at when it came out at 3.5 back in early March. So it was a good. It had a good lifespan for somebody with my level of free time going hard on one project. But they really need to look at in future expansions, including something for us to grind on. Though I do wonder how much of that, and there's a generational gap here. It seems where those of us that are older, as much as we complain, about how we're older, we're just interested in different types of stuff because it's what we grew up with. We're used to bigger, longer grinds and being rewarded at the end of those grinds, and the journey being, you know, the big reason we keep going through. The grind itself isn't, in a way, a reward if there's a big long grind, and the thing you get at the end of it is mostly a trophy just to show off that you did it. And a bunch of older MMO players are okay with that, but I don't know how compatible this mindset is with generation at all. We're not the youngins we used to be, and if you're trying to get new players into the game, you're usually going to aim for the younger demographic, and they just aren't into that type of thing. It doesn't seem. They seem to be into much shorter form content, or they're the streamer watching generation, a community that isn't going to put a whole lot of personal work into a project just because it's something to do, and they'll get a little trophy to show for it at the end. That just doesn't seem like the type of people that are going to go out of their way to do a big long grind. So I wonder if Squeenix is hesitant to put in those type of grinds just because of that type of person. And that seems to be mostly what the younger generation is about. These seem to also be the same types of people that just want the gear faster, because younger people tend to be like that. They don't understand that the reason they like something or they get attached to something is because the amount of effort and work they put into it. And to a degree, that's just a factor of age. You're like that when you're young. You're okay with more instant gratification when you're younger. But when you're older and you've seen the passage of time and know how important it is, it seems like you understand the value time adds to something. And it can be something really dinky in a game. It can be just a title, like this Once and Future Queen title that I can't show you because I can't open my character menu, that I got for clearing Eureka Orthos solo, is a product of working on a relatively piece of difficult content solo over a long period of time and having to practice it. I got it, but and knowing that would take a long time. But the fact that there's no quick way to expedite it means it's going to be rare because it takes time and effort to make it happen. I'm not sure what the heck I just pressed. Oh, I accidentally safetied. Whoops.
So sorry, everybody.
Yep, I was floundering.
You have that experience where you're feeling perfectly fine, and then I just got kicked out. Fantastic.
Oh, for AFKing?
Yeah. You ever have that feeling where you're feeling perfectly fine, and then it feels like something in your gut moves, and then you know the only possible thing you can do is make a run for the bathroom, or it's going to get bad real quick.
Only when I'm sick, usually. But yes, I do know what you're talking about. It took you out of the party list.
Oh,
So
does
if
that mean
you,
I'm done?
it's trying to activate the Cairn. So I'm gonna hold on until you log back in and see if it drops you
No,
back in the dungeon.
I'm not logged out. That's the thing. I'm just got booted back to the lobby.
Oh yeah, then this runs fried. It'll
Oh,
have it. So I'm just gonna leave. We'll have to start over.
oh my goodness! I was just about to touch a key as well.
Yep.
So is the data's knackered now?
Yep. We got to reset it.
You gotta be joking. If I had been 1 second faster, just 1 second would have been enough.
Yep. It's got Party KO 1 next to it now.
Oh my goodness, that's some bull. Well, I can't control what my stomach does. Has a mind of its own.
Oh, you gotta double reset.
Gotta be kidding. What absolute bull.
So yeah, I was floundering through, complaining about how I wonder if the younger generation is even compatible with with long form grinds, because I'm not sure they understand uh how much a grind adds value to something. Like this stupid Once and Future Queen title is just a title. It's not even flashy. It's a cool title, but it's just it's just a title that I wear. But it has value because of all that time it took me to sit there and grind out Eureka Orthos solo. And that was just a grind. And it was going to take time. And it's going to be relatively rare because it's a grind like that. And how that adds value to the title to me personally because of the journey I went through, and in general because not a whole lot of people are going to do it. It's just a fact of all grinds in MMOs. Some people aren't going to do each grind that comes out. And how I'm not sure the current upcoming generation, even more so than just the normal kids want instant gratification, seems to have a real bit of trouble comprehending that. Uh-oh. Oh, we got a purity. We're good. I pulled a mimic while I was still silenced.
Oh. I guess that can happen.
But yeah. So yeah. Now for really reals, I'm probably done talking about Eureka Orthos for a while. And I've said that like 2.5 shows in a row now. But since there's no solo progress for me to make now, and it's all going to be either taking Vaul through to finish getting his kitty or trying to get Fern his first clear finally. Abo hates Deep Dungeon. He doesn't like it at all. So I won't be taking it through him. I won't be going out of my way to experience more Eureka Orthos. Heaven on High and Palace of the Dead are projects on the project list, but they're below like even replaying through the second two or the Cold Steel 3 and 4 to get ready for Reverie. So
is there a Time Worn Artifacts equivalent for Heaven on High?
yes, raw emotions, but you also get them from the final dungeon area in Zadnor, and you have to do that place so many dang times if you're trying to grind up your raise that you'll have more of those than you know what to do with. And you also get them for doing what you call it. You also get them for doing Delaware Regine. So yeah, the raw emotions are easier to get, but you need 15 of them as well. You're a frog.
I am a frog. I've been a frog for some time now.
Uh, I guess I should shoot this other things. But yeah. Yeah, that's all I got for Eureka Orthos. I can't think of anything big or nice or fun to say is a big climax to it. Just I had fun doing it, and I hope we get another deep dungeon eventually in the future. Although I'm going to be deep dungeoned out, at least as far as hardcore grinding goes, for a while.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if it's because it doesn't seem like in terms of like assets, it's mostly reused assets, right? But I suppose the main amount of um development strain that it causes is the amount of time it takes to properly test it.
Yeah, and especially when they up their ante on the boss mechanics like they did, make them actual boss mechanics instead of a few dodgeable AOE's. So yeah, uh, hopefully in the future we'll get one. One every other expansion would probably be okay. Um, but I would be fine with one every expansion if it was a big focus of their dev cycle during one of the patches. I think that would be a nice thing. But I'm not gonna say they must do that. I just think that would be nice. I'm not one of the hardcore raiders here where all I want is the content that I like. Because there's plenty of stuff I can enjoy in this game other than Deep Dungeon. It's just a piece of content that I actually enjoy. So
Yeah, I think they could afford to do one per expansion, to be honest. Like, especially if they seem to be culling so much content in other places. Like, I don't think that they're going to do a Island Sanctuary next expansion, for instance.
yeah, they
Like, I
they
think it got a bit of a lukewarm reception in a lot of ways.
yeah. It seems like it was initially a place just to dump your outdoor furniture. Seemed to be the even though that came later and won't be here until next patch. That seems like the main purpose of it when it was on pitched as an idea. Because there just ain't a whole lot else there. That or somebody played the Animal Crossing game, the latest Animal Crossing game, right when it came out at Squeenix, and just went, "I have a great idea."
Yeah, that felt to me like what happened. That's what I felt happened. Like, I don't have any reason, I don't have any real evidence that that happened, but that's what it felt like to me. Because as what I suppose I thought that way because that seemed to be what was popular with all the VTubers at the time.
Yeah,
They were playing whatever it was, Harvest Moon or
the
I
Switch
don't know.
one.
Yeah, whatever was on Switch.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that covers our Final Fantasy. I still have one more part to my week, but I'll let you interject your week here so we don't forget it.
Wow, my week. I feel like I fell into a pocket dimension for the week because I really didn't do anything except sleep and work because it was audit week. It was audit week, so they sent the auditors in, and I had to invest a week of my existence in wrangling the auditors. So they had a technical expert and an IONS representative. And IONS is like the accreditation body for laboratories in New Zealand, for all kinds of laboratories, whether they are involved in like meter calibrations or whatever. But in order for you to perform some sort of precision technical operation with a proficiency which is officially regarded as, officially good enough, you need to have the IONS accreditation, and every laboratory has an IONS accreditation if they're worth a damn. And in order to maintain it, you've got to go through these audits. So they sent their auditors in, and someone from the national quality manager came down the quality manager for our laboratory, who has been assigned as part of the national quality team, came down and wrangled the IONS representative into the office and basically held them there in paperwork land for 3 days while I babysat the technical expert. So we weren't able to get anything anywhere near as cleaned up as I wanted before the audit began, but that was always going to be the case. Like, to meet my standards is impossible at the best of times, but from how far back we were due to basically the negligence of the previous manager. It was not on the cards that we could be really properly prepared for the audit. It was just not going to happen. But in the end, while it went poorly, like we got a lot of corrective actions, they're not the sorts of corrective actions that are like, oh well, you can't operate without this being done. They're more sort of, oh well, you really need to make these adjustments to properly be compliant type of thing. And most of the corrective actions that I've got to work on in the 2 months before the deadline are things that are quite feasible to accomplish, provided I don't run into any special obstacles. So yeah, while it could have gone better, it could have also gone a lot worse. Like we're very far away from the worst case scenario, which is good. So yeah, I've got a lot of work to do over the next couple months to get things ship shape, but at least I've sort of got a roadmap of what needs to be done, and the things that need to be done are not insane. They are logical for the most part. And one of the corrective actions issued by IANS was that you guys need more staff, like really badly. You can't operate. You can't get all the things done that you need to do on the level of staff that you're expecting it to just happen somehow, which is going to at least send a message to upper management that they can't very well ignore, since it comes from the accreditation body, that basically you are putting your accreditation at risk by trying to run this on the skeleton staff that you have been. So yeah, they aren't going to be able to just ignore that and say, no, you're overstaffed. You should be able to run with less people than this. That ridiculous argument is now gone. They can't use it anymore because the accreditation body has said no. Like, we've observed now the amount of things that you have to do and the amount of staff you've got to do them, and there's obviously a mismatch here.
Yeah.
So, and as much as I can be happy about anything that went on, I'm quite happy that that is finally like out in the open in a way that can't be ignored any longer. So yeah, it had its bright points. Things didn't all go bad. Like, there's lots of stuff that should have been done that wasn't done, things missing, and so on and so forth, that I just wasn't able to salvage before the audit. And a lot of it is just historical and is already sort of on its way out. Like, it's in the process of being rectified, and the only reason it hasn't been is that not enough time has elapsed. But yeah. At any rate, that basically ate my entire consciousness for the bulk of the week, and I was not able to so much as string two coherent thoughts together with what was left of my brain afterwards, because and also it was pretty harsh on my throat, because normally you bounce your technical expert doing the audit between your various senior staff and KTPs, so that no one person, so that all of them can be assessed, and so that no one person has to carry the entire load. But there is nobody else but me for the most part. So I had to do a lot of one-on-one with the technical expert doing the audit, which basically meant that I had to talk for 3 straight days without much of a break. So yeah, my throat was pretty done by the end of it. I was just sort of croaking. But yeah, that part of the crunch is over, and we're now on to the next part of the crunch, which is much more directed work and much less flailing about like a headless chicken. Since when you get the report from the audit, it is arranged into specific actions they want to see done. And when you've got that, then you've sort of got a bullet point list that you can just work down and solve problem 1, solve problem 2, solve problem 3, etc.
Yeah.
So it's easier to organize your mind around that particular task than the one before, which is like, I was dumped into a situation where everything is chaos and you need to restore order. And it's sort of hard to know where to start in that context.
Yeah.
But yeah, so video games was sort of the farthest thing from my mind for the bulk of the week. So to my great shame, the main video game that I played during the week was not a video game at all. It was just Duolingo, which for some reason I decided to randomly start doing at some point in the recent past, though I don't remember exactly when.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sort of just been treating it like a video game where I will do like one lesson every day, sort of thing. And and doing the one in Latin, reconstructed Latin, which is not as useful to me because in the church we speak ecclesiastical Latin, which is different to reconstructed Latin in terms of pronunciation. Most of the vocabulary is similar, but the pronunciation is different. Pronunciation is a bit more similar to modern Italian compared to reconstructed Latin, which has its own type of pronunciation. Although I'm not quite sure how strong the scholarly consensus is on exactly how close reconstructed Latin is to what was spoken historically in ancient Rome. But especially considering like people view Latin as a dead language now, but and even though it's not because it's still spoken ecclesiastically, it's not spoken as a language for primary communication anymore. But it didn't die overnight. Like it was in common usage right up until about 1900, where it was like a language that the educated generally knew because a lot of communications were done in it in the sense of like legal papers were written in it, particularly theological papers were written in it. A lot of scientific papers were written in it, particularly in the 1800s. Um, it was still, in use, and to the extent that it was spoken, it would have been spoken in whatever was the local dialect. And even today, like ecclesiastical Latin in the main is spoken a little bit different in Rome to the way it's spoken in Germany to the way it's spoken in France. Like there are variations, and people pick up ticks from their teacher as well. Like my ecclesiastical Latin is very sort of very fussy about particular consonant sounds, and I speak it quite precisely with a little bit of sort of I think it's probably a sort of a little bit of Maori influence because you hear Maori spoken a lot in New Zealand, more so than you used to in certain ways. Like more colloquial Maori used to be spoken when I was growing up, but now the government forces it into everything and speaks it very badly. But so yeah, some of the consonant sounds are a little bit different that I use. But like if you listen to different priests, they will pronounce it different. Like the rector major of the Sons of the Most Holy Redeemer, which is a local monastic order, speaks it with a bit of a French accent, whereas the the head priest of the Latin chaplaincy speaks it without that accent, even though they're part of the same order, because they presumably had different teachers. So, yeah, there is actually sort of variation in the ways that it's spoken. And none of them, though, line up with reconstructed Latin, which is not spoken by anybody except Latin teachers in schools and Duolingo. But that is the course that's on Duolingo. Unfortunately, the problem with the Duolingo Latin course is that whoever did the sound recordings did a very poor job. Like, obviously, they just had to like find some Latin teachers who are willing to be part of the project and ask them to record some words on whatever crappy webcam mic they had available. So there are some really comically bad voice clips in that program. Also, I really don't like the way that they've chosen the vocabulary for the testing, because realistically, if you're doing a reconstructed Latin course, it should be, if you're creating a course, it should be based around literature, like classical literature. But they haven't. They've tried to construct it the way they would construct a modern language lesson. So, for instance, when they keep teaching phrases about things like the I live in, whatever city, except the cities are always cities like um, New York or Philadelphia or whatever.
Oh,
Like, that doesn't make much sense. Now, to be fair, Philadelphia did exist in Asia Minor, but New York didn't.
yeah.
or Noe Ibaraki, as they have rendered it. I presume that was because original York must have been called Iboracus when it was under Roman control or something like that. But yeah, I don't know why they felt the need to do that because there's literally no use for that. If you're learning reconstructed Latin, the only use is to read like Virgil or whatever. Like that's the purpose
It's
because you want to read literature.
you don't need to ask somebody on the street "Donde está el baño" in Latin.
Yeah, there are some Italians who will understand what you're saying if you speak to them in Latin, but most of them don't. And the only place where it is a lingua franca is Vatican City, and there are a lot of people that speak it there. Although again, Latin and French, Italian and French are probably both more common there. But yeah, the I don't know why they've tried to render reconstructed Latin into a conversational language when there is literally nobody to speak it with because in the Vatican they speak ecclesiastical Latin. So it's very odd decision that they made there. But the reason why I know that they've just tried to conform it to their usual way of constructing these courses is that I tried the Japanese course. Now I've never attempted to learn Japanese before in my life. I've just absorbed like the nominal amount of vocab that you do if you watch weeb content for any length of time. But the there's pretty obvious comparisons between the way they've done the Latin one and the way they've done the Japanese one. But firstly, the Japanese one is very obviously better developed. Like they have obviously consulted more different teachers and attempted more different things and iterated on the way the course is built many, many more times. And it's just more effective at teaching you. I've more or less ignored learning the kana so far. I've just been learning the vocab in a auditory way because I don't have the energy to discern those moon runes at the time of night that I'm doing these courses. So I haven't really paid attention to learning the kana yet. Maybe I'll get around to it, but you can tell that they know what they're doing a lot better with the way that course is structured. Whereas basically the Latin one is sort of like a bastardization of the Cambridge Latin course, except with modern place names and person names put in place of the classical ones, which
Mhm.
seems like a waste of everybody's time since the classical ones are way more relevant.
Yeah,
So yeah, mixed feelings about that course. I'll probably keep up with it for a while and just see if I can absorb a little bit more, a little bit more vocab. But honestly, I'd probably just get more out of reading the scriptural passages and breaking down the grammar because the yeah they just chose such weird things to make into a like the sorts of phrases that you learn from their reconstructed Latin courses are not really useful for reading classical material at all, which is what that language is for now. So yeah, weird
maybe
decision. Maybe they'll iterate on it with time, but there just aren't that many Latin teachers around anymore, and all of them apparently have terrible microphones. So
maybe you will wind up in a situation in the one section of Vatican City using reconstructed Latin where you need to ask where the bathroom is on a street named New York.
it could happen. It could happen. I don't think it will, but it could happen. But yeah, at any rate, yeah. So as a concept, if anybody hasn't ever tinkered with it, they have gamified it quite effectively. Like they've done all of the usual things that you would expect from like a gacha game and that. So like you earn you do dailies, and the dailies you earn a currency, and that currency you can spend on things, namely like um methods of getting that currency faster, which seems like it's not really that helpful, and things like credits that you can use to not break your streak. Like you can put your streak on pause instead of losing it if you can't do the course for a day or whatever, and that sort of thing. So they have gone to some lengths to gamify the thing, but and they've kept the lessons sufficiently short that you don't feel burdened by doing one a day sort of thing because they only take a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
So yeah, it seems like a relatively effective teaching tool, but of course I've never successfully learned a language with it before, so I'm not sure how well it works out in the end.
my sister is obsessed with keeping like the top weekly score in Spanish for some aspect of the thing.
Oh yeah, they've got a leaderboard thing like sort of in the way of say Pinecone, you get dumped into a league right, a competitive league with rankings. And it's not that there's not that many people in it, but you can move up and down the leagues, um, depending
Okay,
on your position at the end
because
of a week.
when she was saying she was #1 in the world in Spanish, I'm like, I bet that's not the whole world.
There's only like a couple dozen people per league. It's not very many. Like they because the objective is to make people feel accomplished, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's to keep them motivated. It's not to actually have a best in Spanish in the world. Like the main reason your sister thinks that is because she's actually really dumb, and you are well aware of this. Like she's just not very intelligent. But yeah,
She also hadn't learned a lick of Spanish from this thing.
she's competing against like 12 other people, and you can easily take the top spot simply by grinding the same easy mode stuff over and over again if you just dump time into it, because it's just about volume of content completed.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good you are at it at all. It doesn't matter how complicated the lessons you are doing are. The only thing that matters is how much volume you put in there. So yeah, it's not even slightly reflective of your actual abilities. It's not intended to be either. It's just intended as a motivational tool to help you feel a sense of progress.
I
And it does that reasonably well. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, I mean, I suppose it's in its own way mission accomplished by fooling people like your retarded sister that they are actually good at something that they're not.
yeah, I poked at it. Oh, many many moons ago. Many moons. Uh Many years actually. And tried to pick up some weeb from it for about 2 weeks. Learned a little bit and forgot most of it once I put it down. But I didn't stick with it. Languages in high school, they were one of my strong subjects. I did very well in Spanish, but I ever since the end of college, I've had a lot of trouble with languages. They just don't stick with me very good. They used to, and I'm not really sure what happened or where my brain.
You got old, that's what happened. Mental plasticity is just a function of age.
Yeah, because it used to be something I was relatively strong in, and now it's just not. So yeah, it would be a big project. It's one I'm meant to do forever because I consume so much weeb content. Being able to understand weeb would help quite a bit.
Yeah, like you, I've never made any serious attempt to learn it. I've never taken any lessons or anything like that. The only languages that I've really ever put any time whatsoever into learning are Latin, and when I was very young, I learned a little bit of German in primary school because
Get.
it was available.
I'm gonna take that rage on to the next floor. Just grab it once I turn into a manticore. Grab it.
Yeah.
Proximity.
But yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself to know any Japanese at all, and a lot of the first like half a dozen lessons are all the word sushi. So it's not like what is the Japanese word for sushi? Okay, that's where
Yeah.
we're starting, is it?
Abo
But
went and learned all the katakana one like in a week.
yes, well, back then he had infinity free time,
Yeah.
so.
So, well, at least he used 1 week on something productive. And
But why would he choose to learn just the language, just the script for loanwords? That doesn't really make much sense.
because a bunch of stuff in mobile games that he was playing at the time was written with loanwords and katakana, namely Idolmaster. Gosh.
Why?
So,
Why is it like this?
I ran through the middle of that room as a big honking manticore and didn't trigger anything. Works. But yeah, he picked all that up so he could play Idolmaster better. So yeah, it's doable.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've never actually had anybody testify to me that they learned a language from Duolingo. So I
Yeah,
don't know if it actually works in that capacity or not, like in the final event. But if all you're interested in is picking up familiarity with a little bit of vocabulary, I guess it can do the trick.
yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to. Oh, why? Who would do this, Chief? Who, I ask you?
I don't know.
I will hit you with the corner of this
Oh,
book.
it's okay. I can fix it. Grab that rage in that chest.
Fantastic.
But yeah, it's interesting. All right, you got anything else for your week?
Um, so this week, FGO is doing a rerun of last year's summer event, and they have given us like
Yeah, just take it.
nearly 3 weeks to do it, which is pretty incredible, to be honest. I expected them to abbreviate it to the point where it's going to be a real strain to do, but no, they've allocated quite a bit of time, which is good because it's a really long event, like a lot of summer events are.
Hmm.
Um, and it's one that I quite enjoyed last time because the story is so bizarre. It's very a very tight moon. Like it makes the most of the extremely sort of twisty cosmology that type moon operates on. Oh my goodness, really? Another pacification?
Well,
Um, yeah, and it's actually sort of like a, and this is sort of a spoiler. It's a stealth continuation of Seraph in a certain way.
uh huh.
Like it's sort of like it's affected very greatly by the aftermath of the Seraph chapter. I mean, it's not like a sequel in terms of theme or content, but it is sort of like, well, this happened afterwards as a consequence, as well as telling another separate story alongside it. But it's actually oddly for a summer event, it's a horror themed one. So yeah, I liked it last time. I had also last time I was quite well equipped in terms of my roster, so it wasn't hugely difficult in any particular way. But yeah. So yeah, I'm gradually making my way through that again. Um, haven't really made a lot of progress simply because FGO is FGO. It requires you to really knuckle down and spend some time with it in order to progress through things. But nearly every problem at this point can be solved by my level 100 Space Ishtar if I don't want to be bothered thinking carefully about a strategy or something like that. So yeah. The in Blue Archive there is an event running, but it seems to be a story-based event that has spoilers for story content I haven't done yet in the main story, so I'll probably try and hit that hard tomorrow and get caught up on the story at least somewhat so that I can watch that in context while it's still relevant. Um, but yeah, it seems to be like pretty deeply woven into the main lore of the story proper. Um, so accompanying that, I did pull on the Himari banner because everybody said that Himari is like super meta, and well, she's the cripple elf, but has a rare ability to improve energy recharge. So yep, worth dumping pyroxenes into. So which gave me the chance to expand my roster pretty significantly. So I did that, and I picked up a few key individuals like Hibiki, who makes everything much easier simply by adding an enormous amount of artillery support to everything that you do, and quite a few key sort of particularly red DPS like Akari and Serika to flesh out the roster. Akari being, you know, Blue Archives Watame, and Serika being Blue Archives Carol. So yeah, roster's finally expanded a bit. I don't have to constantly strain to find strategies to get my way through stages using off-color DPS and that sort of thing, which is what I was doing before. Like I was in the position where I basically used my 1 3-star Haruna to do everything, pretty much, um, because she had enough stats to do it. So I was just leaning on her statistical power to get me through damage checks and that sort of thing. But now I can actually fit things with the right type to any given challenge. So progress has become somewhat easier than it was. But I still haven't had time to, invest myself in progressing it very far because, well, I just haven't had time this week. But hopefully that will start to cool down over the course of the next couple months as I make headway on the corrective actions. And since I don't have to just sort of do bulk bookkeeping because the bulk bookkeeping didn't exist up until I created it, like for instance things like training records and that just did not exist because the previous lab manager didn't create any records at all, and so I had to create records for several years of work from scratch, and that's part of what was eating up such a huge chunk of my time, was just because I had to create in bulk records for things that we didn't have. And now that most of the heavy lifting on that is done, the amount of ongoing work will go down a little bit, and my time can be addressed at, directly addressing corrective action type stuff. So my workload should go down, not all the way to where it should be, but closer to where it ought to be, relatively speaking. Because at the moment I'm still the only KTP, so that means I'm carrying all of the reporting and validation workload by myself, which is not supposed to be the case. But we had one of our senior technicians sort of assessed by the IANS assessor to see where is she at in terms of her proficiency, and he seemed pretty satisfied with her. So we'll probably move her into the technical assessment stage, and hopefully that will mean that we get a KTP for Sunday, Monday, which will mean that I no longer have to work solidly 7 days a week every week. And the national head of quality said that he's going to see if he can create a remote KTP program as well, which will allow me to go on holiday ever, because I have been stuck in place and unable to go anywhere or do anything. So I haven't had a holiday in 2 years. I haven't had a weekend in 5 months. I missed my grandmother's funeral because I couldn't leave the country because she was in Australia. And if I left, I might be able to get away for a weekend or something, except that, I'm at the mercy of a whole bunch of timing things, and I'm also not vaccinated, meaning that they could grab me and stick me in quarantine at any time, and I could get stuck there because people are still mad about that stuff.
Good old Chairman Dan's still on about it. Hey.
Well, Chairman Dan's only relative to Melbourne, and my family live in New South Wales, but honestly, New South Wales isn't a lot better a lot of the time. The only state that didn't completely lose its nut was Queensland, which is where Fern lives. But
Well,
so I was
Fern lives
basically
on Mars, so they're kind of isolated from everybody.
Yeah, I was basically not able to gamble on that because it would have been me sort of disappearing for an undisclosed period of time immediately before audit with almost nothing done that needed to be done. So I couldn't afford it. But now that means I've got to sort of repair the reputational damage that will take the rest of my life for being, that one grandchild who didn't show up to his grandmother's funeral. So, yeah. Not really very happy about that, but it was sort of a trap that I got stuck in without being able to move, and there wasn't really any way out. But well, it is what it is. It's done now. Um, I've just got to try and muscle through the coming days, and hopefully things will. Was it in the room with it?
Yeah, it was right next to the chest.
Huh. Harambe! Yeah.
Okay, the ones in pallets are only dangerous when you pull them, and even then, not these ones.
They still throw poo.
Do. They also chest beat, but they just steroid their damage. They don't
Instantly kill you.
Yeah. In Heaven on High, they have a chest beat that instantly kills you. Well, it doesn't instantly kill you, but it puts you in very a dangerous spot. It does a lot of damage.
Why is there so many giraffes everywhere?
The Jamals are also proximity aggro because they're giraffes. I don't know
Because that's
why.
how giraffes work IRL.
Yeah, they're not side aggro. They're proximity aggro.
I can't hit anything, Aristeel. I keep missing.
Finally got some attacks to land on that Harambe.
It's
Whistling.
whistling.
Dang it, I keep breaking my combo and not noticing it gets broken. Tired of this.
Yeah. So I have been busy. I've been especially busy for the past few weeks. I'm going to be very, very slightly less busy now, I hope, depending on how many things go wrong over the next few days. But yeah, so most of the stuff that I've got to correct, a lot of it will come right on its own. Like, for instance, we got a corrective action and not the records of daily conductivity measurements on the pure water are not good enough. And it's like, well, yes, I know that they're not good enough. Of course, they're not good enough. The previous manager didn't tell anybody they had to take any. And when I took over, I got people to start doing it. So it's sort of something that's already on its way to completion. It's just a matter of, oh, well, I need to collect evidence over the course of a month or so that it's being done.
Yeah. So we'll save that rage and
Rage.
take it to the next
Okay.
floor because the cairn's already open. Checking for chests.
All right, just let me know. Oh, no, the Ken. It's not the. It's not the. What the thing's called? It's called the Ken of Passage, right? Wah! Every chest I've opened in here has been a sodding explosion.
That's okay. Finish
But,
checking. Sure.
yeah, so I'm hoping that I will be able to start getting a little bit of rest at least. I'm so tired. I'm so tired all the time. But I need it to be over. I need a holiday badly. I at least want to try and get a few like 3-day weekends to try and recoup some energy, because as things currently are, I'm just tired like all the time, because like I worked 7 days a week because I have to work at home anytime I'm not at work, and I was at work 6 days this last week, full on working from first thing in the morning till basically passing out at night. And nobody can really keep that up indefinitely. So yeah, hopefully things will normalize a little bit. It's not like I ever had. It's not like I took over as a result of ambition. It's not that I had ambition. It's more that I saw a job being done poorly, and that annoyed me. That's the thing. I was frustrated watching something done poorly when it didn't need to be done poorly. And that's how they get you, apparently. Oh my goodness, another explosive chest. But yeah. That's basically all I've got. I haven't had time to do anything else except what I have talked about. So yeah,
All right.
I haven't. I log on to Final Fantasy like once a week, and it's just during the show, basically. So
Yeah, just does some deep dungeon with us, or does the occasional roulette with Fern. We drag him along, yeah. So
yeah, I want to get back into a more normal sort of entertainment schedule, because I keep like every few weeks I will get some time to play a little bit of Nier, and then I forget what I've done in the intervening time before I next have a chance to sit down and play some. So yeah, I'm hoping that I can actually make some headway on that game.
all right.
I've heard that there's like a break point after which you can't go back, and you've got to sort of complete a certain amount of stuff before you go through it or something. That's the sort of thing in games that make me really paranoid.
There are breakpoints. Don't worry if you're not going for completion. Don't worry about it in Nier.
Well, I at least want to have a grasp of the ending. like I want to know what actually happened.
Well, there's no getting around doing. You got to do the first half of the game twice. Once is 9S and once is 2B. To unlock endings.
No, not Automata. I'm talking about the previous one.
Oh yeah, there's at the halfway point. There's a point of no return where the story just kind of breaks, and you got to and you do a big time skip, and yeah. So what's funny is for the time skip they have Teen Near just grow up a little bit, but for Papa Near they thought the best way to represent the time skip was to put a pair of dirty briefs on his head.
What?
I'll find a picture after the show. Karen's open, but and post it in the
Normally,
live
don't
show
they
chat.
just give him a beard or something?
No, dirty briefs were the answer.
The dirty briefs.
That's what the gay near man on YouTube called it.
Oh no, auto heal disabled. Whatever will EOS do?
Oh,
Rage. Rage.
raging. If I can find cursor over there. There we go.
Let's go.
But yeah. So all right, I've got one more thing to quickly go over my week, and then we can start looking at maybe doing some news topics. We'll see how we feel about any of the news I've posted in the show host board. You got anything else before I jump into my last thing?
Nah, more. Oh goodness me, I'm more or less done. It was not It was a very eventful week for me in a lot of ways, and very banal week for me in a lot of others. So,
all right. So, the last thing for my week involves the Trail series again. So while I was before that, I decided it would be a great idea to finish off Trails to Azure by completing the achievement run. Because like many Trails games, you have to play through it again to get all the enemy scans and see the super bosses and all that, and you have to beat the game on Nightmare. So bumped the difficulty up to Nightmare, did New Game Plus, and carried over all my crap and set the game's speed to as fast as I could go without constantly running into walls when I turned on Turbo, which was around 4 times speed. And
but what are we looking at in terms of like because from what you've said in the past, some Trails games Nightmare mode is kind of trivial because by the time you're attempting to do it, you've got so many I can't remember what they're called. I think of them as materia because they're the same shape.
Quartz.
You've got so many quartz that that you can basically come up with completely broken combinations of things to trivialize the game.
So
is that still the case?
with Trails to Azure, if you're playing New Game Plus like I was on Nightmare, you're for most of the game you're gonna breeze through it. However, when you get to the end game, there are a few bosses that just expect you to break the game because there is no reasonable way to beat them if you want to get full DP or beat them at all in the case of Arios. So the first boss is Arian Road, the Steel Maiden, the 6th Anguis of Ouroboros. She's plays a role in the Cold Steel games, but her impact was greatly diminished by us not having the Crossbow games. And because she's like one of the strongest fighters on the continent, even stronger than Cassius Bright, or at least as strong as him. She's one of the big mega heavy hitters. And to demonstrate this in game, your ragtag bunch of police officers will just get they will get absolutely wrecked when that boss fight. And as she's part of the main story, not in the final dungeon. The final boss is level 118. She's level 120, and you meet her like 3 dungeons before that.
All right. So the thing with these bosses is these types of characters is that various stories sometimes have very unsatisfactory ways of explaining these people, and the big problem is usually that there's not any good reason why nobody would know who this person was.
Yeah,
Like they come out of nowhere and they're super powerful, but why have we not heard of this person before? Like because you can't become powerful, generally speaking, without exercising power. But there's no record of these people exercising power, and yet they're this powerful.
Trails has a few characters like that, but for the most part, they're pretty good about it. Like everybody knows who Cassius Bright is. Like everybody and their mother knows
Except
Cassius,
Estelle.
except Estelle. Everybody that's not his own daughter knows just how big of a deal Cassius is.
I'm gonna die.
It doesn't one shot. It's not
Oh
Eureka
right,
with those.
this is not here we go. Every time I see a telegraph, I think it's lethal.
Yeah. So so everybody except Estelle knows who Cassius is, and people hint all throughout the Crossbell games about Aryan Road and how strong she is when you finally meet her. And the fact that she's part of Ouroboros makes her kind of not a public discussion point, and because Ouroboros is kind of mysterious. And
Well,
what
but the thing is that she was definitely existed before then.
yeah,
Like you aren't born into Ouroboros generally, unless you're Joshua.
yeah, but well, they just kind of kidnapped poor Joshua, but
Yeah, but well, my point is he doesn't have a past outside of Ouroboros, really.
yeah, and the thing with good old with the Anguisses of Ouroboros and why I have less of a problem with them showing up, it's established there are other Anguisses and that they are all relatively powerful in their own right. Aryan Road is special in that she is martially the strongest of the known, aside from one of the Anguisses, which is known to be stronger. And
But I still have trouble with that because I think that makes it worse. Like, because one outrageously powerful and influential person might hide themselves, an entire cadre of them. It seems difficult to see how they won't have a distorting effect on the rest of the world, even if they try and stay out of the public eye.
the
Like, the only reason to be powerful is because you need that power for something, and the only reason to need power for something is if you're going to exert that power in some way.
so the other reason there's no real way not to get around this. She's supposed to have died 200 years ago.
Right. So they're doing that one, but you can only do that once per secret society as well.
Yeah, she's supposed to be dead, and so she is a big historical figure in the history of Erebonia and Crossbell, and the fact that she's still around is a big part of the mystery because yeah, historically she's supposed to have been this big badass that can dunk on anybody she wants to, but she's also supposed to have died 200 years before the start of the story. So it doesn't make any sense that she's this actual person, even though she fits all the criteria. So what's her deal? You're not going to find out in the Crossbell games. You'll get the actual answer to that question in the Erebonia arc.
Are you aware of the framing of the answer that you receive in
Yeah,
Cold Steel, or
yeah.
does it make no sense because they ask all the questions in the Crossbell arc?
So they set it up a little bit, but not as well as the Crossbow games do. They don't have you fight her ahead of time to get an idea for just how strong she is. She like shows up and rescues the class 7 students while they're still students during their first year during Cold Steel 1. She like chucks her spear at a monster that's beating them up, that's clearly out of their league. Doesn't say anything and leaves. And Laura's like, "There's no way that that's actually Leanne Sandlot." But it fits all the criteria. Maybe her spirit came back to save us. But you're supposed to have known that in Cold Steel that she's actually running around and doing stuff. You got something chasing
Oh,
you?
so it's not supposed to really be as much of a mystery as it is to the characters.
Yeah. So you, the player, will know that, especially if you beat her in the fight in Crossbell, which is very, very difficult. You have to make Lloyd. You have to abuse the court system.
You
Have
actually beat her, or is she just going easy on you?
so to get full DP, you have to beat her. To get enough DP where you've practically got all the DP in the game and will still get the highest rank, you have to break her helmet. And her helmet has an entire separate HP bar. The only way you're going to break the helmet is by building an evade tank. Because for those of you that have played the games, you know that whenever you dodge an attack, you counter attack and can get CP back that way. Well, Aryan Road has no magic. Other than her S-Craft, she has no ability that you can't dodge. So what you do is you get your boy Lloyd and you cram him full of the fattest evade quartz you can find, every piece of gear with plus evade on it until he's got 120% evade. And then you physically drag her with crafts into the corner away from everybody else and just have Lloyd keep her there for the whole fight so she can't get near anybody else and have everybody else cast the longest range arts they can
Why
on her.
you pox me, bruh?
Oh,
You pox me, bruh?
I didn't notice the mimic. We got 3 purities.
I'm looking for them in the list, but I cannot find them. Maybe I'll just wait for it to wear off. I've got an EOS, it'll be fine.
It's second row, second palm.
I just thought EOS can deal with it. EOS is special. I can deal with 10 minutes of this.
Oh, we got a chimera. Oh, he's not gonna do the rammer dragons though.
He doesn't do classic chimera.
Thought he did. He does breasts, not voice. Okay. But yeah, so you have to cheese the game with an evade tank to beat her and get the full DP. And there's just no getting around it if you want to see the bonus scene at the end for beating her, and there's an achievement for beating her.
Yeah, but I mean, like, lore-wise, do you actually beat her, or is she just going easy on you and decides to wander off afterwards?
She's surprised that you managed to stay on your feet fighting her, but she basically says, "All right, you're strong enough to go deal with the problem of Crossbell right now. I'll let you leave you be," and just kind of pieces out after you've demonstrated you're not going to get raffle stomped by the big bad.
I thought she's the bad guy.
So she's part of Ouroboros. But
so have basically, I've only played Sky, and they're uniformly malevolent.
Weissman is. The Anguisses are usually more evil than the Enforcers. The Enforcers are more chaotic neutral, and they just do whatever the heck they want, and don't go against Ouroboros' plan, and may choose to help it or not. She's an Anguis, so she would normally fall under the umbrella of being one of the eviler ones, but she has a very specific reason she joined Ouroboros that's revealed in the Cold Steel games that I don't want to spoil for people. So she's there for a reason that isn't the Grand Master, which is unique amongst all the Anguisses of Ouroboros. Like, yeah, Vita's the second Anguis is a sadistic monster. Weissman was a sadistic monster. His replacement is a sadistic monster. And the workshop Anguis is a sadistic monster. But Arian Road is different in that she has a very specific reason she joined Ouroboros, and it ties into her backstory. But her backstory, if you just play the Cold Steel games, loses a lot of impact because how big of a deal she is not emphasized very well, other than the history of her that they go on about in the world, and how important that history is. You don't actually...
Was she sort of like the Cassius of a previous era or something?
Yeah, 200 years ago, she was not a leader per se, but just the strongest martial person out there that helped the original founder of Erebonia establish the Empire, just because she was strong enough to do it, and fell in love with him. But without the ability to see that level of strength on display before, and have to going out of your way to cheese the fight, see the bonus scene, I think really helps emphasize just how powerful they want to make her seem, because it certainly leaves an impact when you have to sit there and stare at the stat screen going, all right, how do we fix this?
With a stick.
Well, with a little police officer that has 2 sticks.
Oh boy, 2 sticks.
But yeah, in the Cold Steel games, you don't meet her until Cold Steel 3. And she just doesn't get introduced personally to the characters until later, because they assume you played the Crossbow games. And so a lot of her personal impact just isn't there. Her interaction with the characters and her history just is told to you rather than shown to you like it is in the Crossbow games. So having that recontextualizes a lot of her character, and she's a pretty big part of Cold Steel 4 especially, and Cold Steel 3 to a lesser extent. But we just didn't have that before. And the later bosses don't disappoint with needing to noodle your way through them. The last boss in particular, even on a casual playthrough, your first playthrough, when you're not really worried about min maxing everything, is pretty rough. And you probably come to rely on Tio's get out of jail free S craft, where she gives you it less than 200 CP if you use it. It gives you everybody on the map that's an ally one free hit of damage immunity. So if you screw up and you see the boss about to do their S craft, you can pop TOs and just no sell it. The last boss has a 0 delay, so it can do it instantly without consuming any of its time on the turnometer. Omni Dispel if you put any immunities up. It also has a ton of magic attacks that all hit like tanker trucks, and you can't dodge magic. So you can't have Lloyd go cheese it. You just gotta grind your way through it like you would a normal boss fight, and have to set up your party like a kind of like a traditional JRPG party. And what I did was I just focused on as much damage as possible to deal with the ads it summons, because they're the bigger problem in Phase 2. And it took about 3 or 4 attempts for me to beat that boss on Nightmare. Even with New Game Plus carryovers and having ×2 of all the most powerful accessories and stuff in the game from doing like the fishing stuff twice. But other than that, the Nightmare mode ain't too
real
rough.
path to power fishing.
Yeah. But other than that,
still was on the right track all along.
She was. All the Trails protagonists except for Kevin, who even Falcon Fruits exists, all love fishing. They're strong. Not really strong. But yeah, it's Trails to Azure is a really, really good game. I don't want to spoil the big twist for people. The actual big twist happens on the elevator, not the reveal of the Grand Mastermind. That's the much weaker twist. But the big mega twist on the elevator was really well done, and the story in general is just good, and it fixes a problem that, well, it doesn't have a problem, rather I should say, that Cold Steel fell into, and that Class 7 has like 9 kids in it when it starts, and your cast only gets bigger from there. And so versus the SSH, which is 4 dudes and their chief of police who isn't a party member. So you can focus on each individual part of the group a lot better with a smaller cast. And you're also constrained to crossbell, so you get to really know crossbell as a location instead of running over Erebonia, which if you look at a map of Zemuria, the place is absolutely massive. So and it's so big, in fact, that it's hard to establish an Erebonian culture or get a feel for what any one region's like, because every place is so radically different, and you spend so little time in each place compared to the whole length of the game. That versus where you're in Crossbell, you learn about Crossbell, you learn about Crossbell's problems, you learn how they deal with it and how that affects the people there. And you can go to each district, and while each district has its own flavor, they're all still very much Crossbellians and have a Crossbell attitude towards things. This is just and the smaller cast lets each party member have its own fully in-depth story, which is the problem Cold Steel doesn't have, or a problem. Let me try that sentence again. It avoids a problem that Cold Steel falls into, where there are just too many dudes, and Ereboni is too big. So the Cold Steel games are still good, but I think the Crossbell games are just the much better experience overall, and I'm very upset we didn't get them until now. But I'm still happy we got them at all, especially with bro moments removed.
Ugh. Another reason to learn web speak.
Yeah, not every game is going to have the Xseed guys come in and bail it out.
But in my bra moments.
So yeah, there was that. This has sparked the other half of the trail stuff that I did this week. I wanted to re-experience the Cold Steel series now that Crossbell's in my head because a lot of what happens in Cold Steel, a big section of the game has to do with what happens in Crossbell after their failed bid for independence that goes through in the Crossbell games, and how Ereboni and Calvert react to that, especially Erebonia. But I
Has
didn't.
Kelvin been at the center of one yet?
Calvert's Kuro no Kiseki, the series that follows Cold Steel.
Right. Is that finished being released in Japan yet?
The second game came out. I don't know if it was the last one in the Calvert arc or not. But it is it's the one they're either working on or just finished. So yeah, there's that one. And but I did not want to have to go through Cold Steel 1 and 2 again. Because Cold Steel 1 and 2 are a slog. They look ugly, they're old, and they have a whole lot of janky mechanics. Just in general, not a fun sounding time to go through. So what I did was I put all the voice cutscenes on in English on the other monitor while I did that Eureka Ortho solo run, and just had them playing while I did that. So that was the other reason I was in Eureka Ortho solo again, because I wanted to rewatch Cold Steel, but I didn't want to do nothing at the same time I was just watching it. And I already own PC versions of Cold Steel 3 and 4, and I figure I can do a main story playthrough and not if I fast forward through the side quests, at least the ones I'm not particularly interested in, we can what you call it? I can get through them pretty quick, especially with turbo mode, because these games have turbo mode and turbo mode's a godsend.
Lewdheadpets.jpg.
So yeah, it's something I'm going to be working on, and we will see how that project goes, whether it gets abandoned and I just give up and watch the cutscenes, or if I finish going through the replay. I do not know yet. Strong, you said? Oh, strong.
Better for you to re-strength.
What was in this one? I already forgot.
Purity. But Pox doesn't do anything if you have an EOS, so.
Well, except reduce your damage. But...
yeah, but I'm not doing damage. I'm just running around after chests.
Yep. So yeah. And that's all I got for the current Trail Series stuff. That's a lot of dudes.
It'll be fine.
I'm put auto crossbow back on the bar, thankfully. Please hold. Vaul has decided to pull the world. I need to figure out where the auto crossbow button is and start mashing it.
It's fine.
Oh, he's already cleared it out now. Might as well go check all the chests. But
leave no treasure behind. Rage!
You can take that to the next.
That.
You can take it to the next floor.
I suppose this is a pretty small floor. The size of the rooms in Orthos are so large compared to Palace of the Dead that you really can't take things to other rooms.
Yep. So yeah. But yeah, still recommend the game. Even the full achievement playthrough is fairly fun with the gameplay stuff. Just having to find ways to actually break the game to get the secret scenes and see the bonus content. And the super bosses weren't particularly tough, but were interesting puzzle bosses. Particularly the one that just stacks defense. And finding a way to crack that was fairly interesting. Can you pop a Serenity?
Where is it?
Second row, second to last one.
Second row, second to last.
14 seconds of animal smacking. But yeah, I've enjoyed my time going through the Trails series again and getting back into that franchise. I do love that franchise. Over time, I've grown more and more attached to it. Even the weaker entries like Cold Steel 1 and 2, I still enjoy. Even games like Cold Steel 4, which have the massive cast problem of they just decided to bring everybody to the party. Um, I still I still am fine with and get a lot of enjoyment out of. So I'm looking forward to the Trails to Reverie, which requires you to know Crossspell, Erebonia, and has its own arc that it does because it's like the Trails in the Sky, the third, the one where Kevin was the protag, and required you to know everything and all the side stories going ahead of time for that one. Same deal with this one. So doing a refresh on it before that comes out, and yeah, we'll see when that gets here in early July. I think is when that's coming out. So I got 2 months to either replay or rewatch Cold Steel 3 and 4, and yeah, I think that's going to be my next project, just to get myself ready for Trails into Reverie. Alrighty, and I got nothing for my work week to talk about. We're already kind of stretching, um, but probably at the end of this floor set, we will take a relatively we'll call it there. But the what you call it? Oh, there's a chimera here. I should probably kill that. I don't want to blow my juice before the boss. Oh, hey dragon. Making all the friends, aren't you?
I'm good at that.
So yeah, there are a few newslets we could talk about, but most of them I'm just not that interested in. Stuff like let me pull up the show host board. We didn't have an email, at least when I checked at 8:45. So like the Microsoft Activision has cleared all the commissions like we knew it would. There was basically no stopping that. Microsoft's gonna buy Activision, and it's gonna go through.
I keep hearing opposing information on that though. Like one week there'll be an article saying it's definitely screwed, and then the next week there'll be an article saying it's definitely going ahead.
If Big Corpo with enough money wants something, there is nothing that can stop it.
I mean, that's what I would think, but apparently people felt the need to write articles about it. So,
Oh yeah, it's going to. It's an easy way to generate. Clickbait's the wrong word. Generate content when people don't know how to write. They're running around like a chicken, like I don't have a healer. But yeah, it's cleared China and the European Council now. So I think it's still got a lawsuit in the U.S. going, but that's not going to stop it. Lawsuits in the U.S. never stop anything. So I wouldn't put your hopes in that if you really don't want this acquisition to go through. So sorry, WoW Bros. Your game is probably getting owned by Microsoft now, on top of being owned by Activision. Which,
well, I mean, realistically, being owned by Microsoft has historically been a better indicator for a lot of games than being owned by Activision, especially current Activision.
ah, crap. He's stuck on the wall.
I can't get him off. Like,
we're about to lose a lot of HP. Get the regen potions and the shields up. It
You
leaves
keep
you.
running away from me, it makes it very hard for me to heal you.
I'm in deep dungeons, so I'm used to having to uh, run away from the mobs to put time between their auto attacks. But yeah, it's going through more than likely. So
I think that it could be a good thing for them because the reality is that, Blizzard games are complete trash. Like they have completely fallen off. Like they recently announced that they were totally abandoning the intended hero mode for Overwatch 2, which was the only reason anybody was willing to put any faith in Overwatch 2.
yeah,
Like that was the whole point because Overwatch 2 as it currently is like it's barely a patch different from the original. And the only reason people suffered through having lost, everything that the original game was because of the promise of the PvE content to come. And now they've just cancelled it.
yeah. It doesn't surprise me with that Overwatch went that route and fell because eh, well, it doesn't surprise me because it's Blizzard, but for some reason, Overwatch especially just seems prime for them to not care on. I don't know why it's always stood out to me like that.
Yeah, well, I think it's because it was a new IP, and the only thing that they ever try and do is exploit old IPs, and so the new one they're just not really trying as hard as they ought to.
Yeah,
I think that it just hadn't established it as a thing to be milked yet, but milk it they tried to do, and I think that they've made every possible mistake they could have made establishing that. Much in the way they completely burned Starcraft to the ground and for no reason.
yeah.
And
They've
from what people have said, the statistically most popular mode in StarCraft was their hero mode, the thing that they were planning to bring to Overwatch.
mm-hmm.
And then they canned both. StarCraft 2's basically been canned. That franchise is essentially dead. And Overwatch, they canned the thing that was the only thing keeping alive. So Overwatch is essentially dead. Um, Diablo is, suffering under the weight of having Diablo Immortal associated with it.
Yeah,
And World of Warcraft is World of Warcraft. Like for instance, I've heard that the cinematic that terminates the end of the new raid, the newest raid, is like comically inadequate for actually performing the job of a cinematic to sort of dramatically close off the end of that story branch,
mm-hmm.
and it just totally fails at it. Like it's got like one line of dialogue while everybody else watches, or something like that, and then it's over. Like they're making every possible mistake. Like it may be, oh no, Microsoft is taking over Activision. Oh no, Microsoft is going to be in charge of Blizzard properties. What could possibly be worse? Well, what could possibly be worse than what it currently is? Really,
Yeah,
like it's hard for it to become any worse than it is.
I will never underestimate Blizzard's ability to find a way to make it worse.
Yeah,
I,
well, so as far as I'm concerned, the having somebody else in the chain of command can't possibly make it any worse. It could only be a good thing, because left to their own devices, they only succeeded in ruining literally everything. And that's why part of why I don't buy into any of this cope about it being better than previously. Because sure, it's better than previously. The same way that having a root canal is better than having brain surgery. They're both absolutely freaking awful.
yeah, it's still bad. What you had before was the hottest garbage on the market for MMOs. So yes, anything is. Oh yes, it's so much better than that because you didn't have much further down to go.
Yeah, well, the thing is that Microsoft has put money now into it, and they're going to want that money back.
Yeah.
So
So
they have an interest in making this thing good.
it's the only concern I have with this is Activision was already a Munchie publisher that was snapping up a lot of people, and Microsoft acquiring them, just them and Sony are just putting more and more people directly under one or two banners instead of
I mean, that was always going to happen, and I'm sure they'll reach some critical mass at which they're forced to break up, like Microsoft in the past.
yeah,
But I don't think it's really that big of a problem because Microsoft has a bunch of studios, but they didn't have a juggernaut under their banner. And honestly, what does Activision do these days? Like for the past X amount of time, the only things that they've been known for is having like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Candy Crush, and that's it.
yeah.
That's
You've
like their whole portfolio that anybody cares about.
yeah, certainly. That's all I can think of from their recent stuff. They used to have a few more things like the Guitar Hero series and stuff, but they don't do that anymore. And yeah, it's all those three games. So
Like so, while it's a big investment and it's a big takeover in an on paper sense, in terms of what in the market is affected by it, it's not really very much. Like there was no competing military shooter from Microsoft. Like they didn't have a toe in that pond.
yeah,
So that them having Call of Duty under their aegis is not going to change very much. Blizzard will most likely still be Blizzard doing Blizzard things under Blizzard's name, just owned by Microsoft now and accountable to them to actually turn a profit. Um, and when they screw up, there'll be somebody wanting to know why. It's like our boy Bobby was not exactly so incredible that Microsoft is in trouble of finding somebody worse than him.
yeah. So yeah, I've seen newslets ever since this deal started looking like it was going to go through, and when it was first rumored, and I just haven't put much stock into them until we finally have started getting some news that's like yeah, it's actually going to be able to go through. I well, stock's the wrong word. I believed it would go through always, and I never had a thought that it wouldn't eventually get hammered through. But I just haven't been we haven't been following the story very much because there just ain't a whole lot to say about it, and
It's one of those big business moves that happens, but doesn't necessarily change a great deal on the ground. I think that as the big publishers sort of mop up more and more studios, like uh, it's going to require it to have come down to one or two major players before it'll actually disturb the way the industry goes. Bethesda's behavior hasn't actually changed at all since they came in under Microsoft's name. Like they still do the exact same Bethesda things, both good and bad. Like, you don't seriously think that if Microsoft hadn't bought Bethesda, that Todd wouldn't have released Skyrim 1,500 times? Like he's just doing what he would always do.
yeah. So yeah, that's the update on that that's going on. Other stuff. Speaking of Activision, WoW is putting out a hardcore mode where if you die, your character gets deleted.
Yeah, and I think that the reason that they're doing that is because one, it's incredibly easy to make and doesn't require you to do anything, and two, it's been a topic of discussion in the MMO community lately. So they're just trying to ride the wave
Yeah, it doesn't.
because the people like recently started doing Iron Man runs of Final Fantasy 14, for instance. It's become sort of a popular thing in the streamer space. Um, and they're just trying to bandwagon basically.
Yeah,
They've had hardcore modes in their other games for a long time, and I guess they figured, well, people are talking about it, it's easy to implement, and we've done it on in umpteen other games. Why not just jam one in here and we can call it a feature? And maybe one or two people will sign up to check it out, and our MAUs will go up for a quarter, and we'll be able to report that we actually did something.
yeah. That's about the read I got on it. So, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about there. Neither of us particularly care about it.
No,
It's
like of all games, like World of Warcraft is not an interesting one to do a hardcore mode of at all, because it's easy to not die if you don't want to die. If
yep.
you were going to start progressing Mythic, then it might matter. But where else are you going to die in that game?
Hmm.
So long as you don't pick up pugs, you'll be fine. Unless you're on a PvP server and going to somewhere that's filled with PvPers.
Unless you
Right.
wander into Stranglethorn in the middle of the night.
Like, it's just not difficult at all to stay alive in World of Warcraft. If this was World of Warcraft back in the day, where you know the son of Aragal would just wander up and murder you while you were minding your own business, might be a different story. That's not the case anymore. Nothing threatens you at all in World of Warcraft. Dying doesn't happen. The only time you die is if you accidentally fall off a cliff.
Yeah, for Alliance players, the equivalent would be your pillagers in Westfall that just fireball you for half your HP. But yeah, it's whatever. They can do it if they want, I guess. If I was still playing WoW, it would be an interesting thing to poke at, maybe, but I just don't care.
Nah, I don't think so, because the whole point of hard a permadeath mode is to be in it for the long haul. And I don't want to ever be in World of Warcraft for the long haul ever. So,
Well,
no.
It's a moot point because I'm not playing WoW right now, and
It's like
will not be
what
playing
what
anyway.
I'm saying is that your description is wrong, right? Because you can't poke at a hardcore mode, because you can't pick it up and then put it down. Like, it's not hardcore if you just stop playing.
Well, okay, this was me thinking with my head screwed on backwards in one particular way. When I say poke at it, I meant go in until I inevitably die and then put it up on the shelf and not do it anymore.
Yeah,
But
the thing is that in order to do that, you would have to put yourself in the position where you die.
yeah,
And in order to survive, you don't put yourself in the position where you die.
yeah,
That's the thing. Like, it's nonsensical.
but in modern WoW, you can't die.
Yeah, like, the only way that you die is if you tempt fate and you go and do a pug with a bunch of retards who get you killed. Like, that's how you die in World of Warcraft.
Like
You don't die by other means. It doesn't
because
happen.
in a way, my most recent Warcraft experience is coloring my perspective on it. Because my most recent experience was original classic.
Well, original classic was that old World of Warcraft where there were things that were slightly hazardous in the world.
Yeah,
Like, it's not like that no more. And the thing is that that version doesn't classic already have that?
yeah, they're porting it. They're porting it from classic, I think.
Yeah, so the discussion is now irrelevant, because the only game of World of Warcraft where it is relevant already has it, and adding it to an alternative version of that game where it simply does not function because the game is not built for it, that's not news at all. Like, that's really silly. The whole thing is a waste of everybody's time,
Yep.
because it is effortless to not die in modern World of Warcraft, because the game is not intended to kill you. The only time it kills you is by accident, or when you are progressing something extremely difficult.
Yeah. So yeah, there's that bit from Blizz Activision. There's another piece of news from Blizz Activision. BlizzCon's back.
Is
It's
it though? Does anybody care? Is it going to be like modern Star Wars Celebration?
yeah, it's in person again apparently, and I presume it'll be in Anaheim like it usually is.
I presume they're going to force everybody to wear face diapers anyway.
Yeah, California in current year is not a place I would want to have any kind of anything. So yeah, that's happening.
Are they going to announce another expansion? Like,
I don't know.
I don't see what they can do that anybody will care about. They've already stopped everybody from caring about Overwatch 2. World of Warcraft is back in the doldrums after a minor improvement upon their previous calamitously bad product. StarCraft 2 is dead. Well, what's left? Diablo? Is Diablo 4 even out? I don't even know, because I care so little about it.
It's coming out soon, I think. I've seen headlines like, "Look at this story trailer."
Yeah, I don't care.
I haven't looked at the story trailer because I don't care.
Yeah, I can't. I used to love Diablo 2. Like, I had a great deal of fun with that. I played it at LAN parties all the time. Played with my friends all the time. Diablo 3, my experience with it was incredibly banal. Like, it was strictly inferior to Diablo 2, and it was strictly inferior to Grim Dawn, and strictly inferior to Titan Quest, and strictly inferior to all manner of other similar types of games. simply because they balanced everything wrong and it had no real appeal to it because of that. Like they couldn't recapture anything.
Yeah,
Like
the
Grim Dawn is just the better Diablo 3 in my opinion. So yeah, what I don't see what they can talk about at BlizzCon that anybody will give a toss about.
yeah. So Diablo 4 is coming out on June 6th. So almost here, but I'm not putting the Blizzard launcher back on my computer.
So when will BlizzCon be scheduled for?
November or something. November 2nd and 3rd, I think.
So recent enough that there's really nothing much that they can talk about for Diablo 4 other than, oh, and the new season will be starting in month X, and so you can grind your character from level 1 again. And yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah.
That if they want to give a super early announcement, they might be able to announce an expansion or something to it. But nobody will care about Overwatch. Nobody will care about World of Warcraft because it'll just be a patch announcement if anything. Diablo will be a patch announcement of anything. Overwatch will be a patch announcement with anything. Unless they've got another StarCraft property in the works or a new IP that they're ramping up to announce, nobody's going to give a toss about
Yeah.
any of that crap. Like, I don't see why would they have a BlizzCon? It's very expensive to run, and who's going to show up? Like how many Blizzard faithful are left relative to the heyday?
I don't know. So yeah. Oh. So there's that. I'm gonna skip the Hololive thing because it's much of a nothing. And lastly, the U.S. government is doing U.S. government things. And while
Again.
none of these stories are particularly immediately impactful, they're worth keeping your eye on because they'll shape the future of how things go. And the way things go with regulation in the US affects every company based in the US and thus will likely impact you even if you don't live in the US because people will piggyback off of it or you'll be impacted indirectly by the companies you're doing business with being in the US. So the first one's a fairly minor one. The Supreme Court punted on Section 230 for Google. They shouldn't do that.
They punt on everything. Do they ever hear a case?
As usual, looks like Clarence Thomas wanted to hear that part of the argument, and Alito did as well, but everybody else punted on it. So that's the
They're
way
all
that.
so useless, especially John Roberts. He's the worst.
Yep, because you never know what way he's going to go, and it's usually when he does decide to take a stand on something, usually not in your favor.
Yeah, was because he stands for the establishment. Like that's his thing. Is to keep everything the way it is, which means to keep the bloated bureaucratic establishment at the maximum level of power.
Mm-hmm. So Supreme Court being useless as usual. Poor Clarence Thomas, he's trying. So we won't get to hear the merits of 230 on Google, and that's how that goes. The scarier thing is this one. Senators Bennett and Welch, Democrats from Colorado and Vermont, are now arguing that the current organizations in place to regulate digital platforms, i.e., the internet, are not sufficient, and it should be handled by the federal government for U.S. based companies.
Anytime the US government, the US federal government wants to handle something, it means that they want control over it. They don't want to regulate. They don't want to make it better. They don't even really want to change anything. They just want absolute power over it.
Yeah, it is just a power addiction, or they want to be able to control speech on something so that they can make sure their message is getting out and their enemies are suppressed. That's all it means, and that seems to be the case in this one. Um, they they say a whole lot of words about accessibility and stuff, and I don't care about any of that. What they really the important thing here is the federal government wants control over something. The specifics of what they said they want are irrelevant because they're liars, and we don't trust liars on this show. Other shows might and might take them at their word. You can go look up all the specifics of what they said if you really think maybe there's a kernel of truth to them, but I don't know why you would because they're a proven liar is a liar until proven otherwise. Until they've
Yeah,
shown to
the
turn
fine
their worth
the, f-
around here.
the fine detail might as well be the whatever, what is it, the teacher on Peanuts. Just wah 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 wah. Like that doesn't matter. They're saying things to say them. They're saying things to sound, whatever they envision as being statesman-like. The objective is what they're after here, and the objective is more power. That's it. Period.
Yeah, this will let if federal government gets control of digital communications platforms. Uh, Good luck. You're going to have to use Tor
I
basically
mean,
to have free conversation.
if what you want is absolute control over your populace, you need to have that control to go with your central bank digital currency.
Hmm. So it's not surprising at all that they're trying to ram something like this through. Um,
Well, what's the central bank digital currency, programmable currency? They've got control over all of your assets functionally. All of your liquid assets are directly under government control, and they can tell everything that you say at all times and regulate accordingly.
yeah,
You will literally be a slave to the state,
yeah, you'll
quite
be.
literally, because they can take away anything that you have on a whim, and they can punish you and silence you on a whim, and you won't have any rights whatsoever.
Hmm. It it's a real dystopian future we're looking at, and it will get rammed through. I think eventually we'll get there. And
Yeah, I
far,
think it's a matter of time. Like it's possible that the West as a whole will collapse before they bring it to fruition because we're pretty close to collapse already. But yeah, I think it's some form of that dystopia will definitely manifest. It's just a question of timing and scale.
yeah. So keep your mind on it and keep your eyes on when it's happening. I wouldn't spend your day fretting over it or worrying things like what can be done. This one is a little bit out of the reach of the individual to do anything about. You can
Yeah,
help
this
add to
just
the
depends
noise.
on whether there's any people who are actually in the halls of power who have any spine or any integrity or any principles at all. And honestly, once you're in the Beltway, the odds of that drop pretty significantly.
Yeah, it will corrupt you whether you like it or not. And so you can add to the noise a little bit about it whenever a story like this crops up. I recommend that's what I'm doing right now. But I'm not going to lose sleep over its coming. Just in the end, Jesus wins.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that there could be a change in the wind. It just depends on how many people get sick of listening to the federal government, because it's still, consent of the governed is actually a thing. It's very difficult to see how it applies a lot of the time, since the government does whatever it wants and doesn't give a toss about what its people think. But the reason why the government has power is simply because people allow it to. Like when the if the broader swath of people just decided that they had enough and stopped listening, then what would the government do? The government is just at root, it's just a powerful class of people existing in Washington D.C., and they have as much power as they have people on their side, really. So yeah, I mean they can ruin a lot of lives and make things very very miserable for a lot of people, but people are fickle and they don't stand behind the same thing forever. There is a huge amount of there's a huge bulk of people who just don't care, and while that's a boon to people who want to abuse their power, it's only a boon in the sense that they don't oppose them. They also won't do anything to defend them when it comes right down to it.
Yeah. So most of this stuff will stretch into MPP territory if we stick on it too long. But I
Yeah, I
just
think
wanted
I think
to.
a lot of people are going to start to drift out of the camp of complete ignorance into the camp of somewhat ignorant. I think, and I honestly I think that the whole Tucker thing is likely to assist in that regard,
Oh yeah,
because it's really changed the way people look at media establishments as a whole.
yeah,
Because everybody, whether they liked him or loathed him more than the devils of hell themselves, everybody knew about Tucker and everybody knew he was popular. Like there's no progressive, no matter how woke, isn't aware that Tucker was beloved by people, and yet the establishment cast him out. So if you're on the far left, you can't any longer see Fox as part of the monolithic right because they disposed of the person you hated the most. And if you're on the right, then you can't look at the monolith, the Republican monolith as being on your side any longer because they cast out the person who you listened to the most. So it's going to change a lot of people's minds about things, I think.
Yeah, and we've obviously known about this for a long time. Most of the listeners of the show probably have as well. But the normies, most people, the just want to grill types, need to get woken up, and that takes something like Fire and Tucker as a first step.
Well, I mean, you said even your dad's thinking of cutting his Fox connection.
Yeah, if he could get my mom to stop watching her murder shows on the TV, he'd cut it probably tomorrow.
It's turns out Hannity was only popular because people had already turned on the television to watch Tucker.
Yeah, either I forget if Hannity was before or after Tucker, but it the only reason he had viewers is because he was around the Tucker time slot. So and now he's got the 8 o'clock slot. So okay, sure, Fox. So yeah, most of that discussion will get into MPP territory. So we're not gonna get too into it. Just keep an eye on it and make some noise whenever it happens to show your dissent, and we'll see where it goes. This one, like I said, personal action other than making a bit of noise, not a whole lot you can do.
I,
So
I think that what I tend to do the most about these sorts of things is to just use them as topics of discussion with like casual acquaintances at work and that sort of thing.
yeah,
Because most people, I don't know about in other countries, but in New Zealand, most people are completely politically unaware. Like they have no concept of politics as ideology at all. This is not even a question of what party do they vote for or anything like that. They don't have a concept of politics as being related to ideology. They don't have a concept of politics as being related to principles of any kind.
yeah,
So it's interesting to introduce people to that concept, and when they come from a position of ignorance, like a total political ignorance, they will almost always be primed to adopt a left wing point of view, but in their gut inclined to adopt a right wing point of view because it involves more common sense. It is more in touch with the reality they live in. So I will often introduce these things in a way that doesn't frame them as political so much as look at this common sense thing that is just ridiculous. Look at this oh look, this guy that we've heard of who's super popular, but his own people got rid of him because allegedly his boss was mad that he liked Jesus too much or whatever. Like how silly is that type of thing?
yeah. They've had a whistleblower in air quotes after that got out come out and say it was totally part of the Dominion lawsuit, guys, and that holds no water.
But everybody knows that took place on a different time scale.
Yeah, and Tucker was the least aggressive on Dominion.
Yeah, he got so much flack from the Trump faction over that because he
Hmm.
didn't think it was worth pursuing, and largely because he knew that most of the people who were pushing it were grifting.
Yeah,
It's not a matter of whether or not it's true. It's a matter of the fact that the people that were being latched onto as the prophets of this particular narrative were grifters, and he knew that they were grifters because he sees grifters every day. He knows what they look like.
yeah, and it's sad that was the case, but it is what it is, and he chose to focus on other targets for that particular forbidden topic, and so him
Well,
being part
the
of that
the
lawsuit does not make a whole lot of sense.
yeah, and the proof of the pudding is in the eating. He was effective, and everything related to the Dominion lawsuit was not. Like if he was wrong about everything, then his career would have gone the direction of Rachel Maddow's.
Yeah. Oh dear. But yeah, keep an eye on this kind of stuff. Be aware of when it's brewing and when it happens, so you can maybe not be as shocked when it does happen, or if you think you can plan for it, plan for it. If you got a plan, although a lot of this stuff requires you to see the nature of how it's implemented before you can really make a plan. and that won't happen until it actually becomes reality. But keep it in your brain, and if any major updates come on stuff like this, I'll try to keep you informed on the show and post it around when I see it if I think it's noteworthy.
Yeah, we just haven't had enough. There's not enough concrete material to make an MPP because everything's just sort of like gliding along very slowly. But I mean, we will probably end up doing one for the primaries, the
Yeah,
US primaries.
we if a particular topic makes some headway or really penetrates the public consciousness and we get the time to do it because Vol's also been really busy, um, we might try and do one then. I would like to do more MPPs, but they take quite a bit more work than the normal show.
Yeah. When does primary season proper really start? Like when do they start doing that process?
Usually,
Of
it would be in the first half, throughout the first half of the year of the election. So, be the first half of 2024. But we live in clown world, so primary season has technically already started. But I really don't want to do a show talking about the Trump DeSantis spat.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's unclear about that, and I think the sad part is that I think that both of them have good intentions. Like as individuals, I think they both have good intentions.
Yeah, I just think they're yeah. That'll get into MPP territory real quick. But
Yeah,
and we could wind up with egg in our face no matter what we say because
the
we don't know
simple
what they think yet.
well we can say something, we can say some things for sure, and one of those things is that Trump will definitely run, and one of those things is that DeSantis hasn't declared that he's running at all.
Yeah, he's positioning himself in such a way that he might. But
But he's positioning himself in a way to leave himself that opening. He's prepared in case he decides to pull the trigger, but there's nothing stopping him from just holding fire for another 4 years. He's got stuff to do at home. He doesn't need to become the president, and a lot of people who support Trump are acting like he doesn't know that, but he does know that. He knows that there's a lot that's at stake, and if he does, it will probably be because he's got donors pressuring him to do it. Because I don't think that his heart currently lies with the presidency right now. Not
yeah,
right now.
I think he has it as an eventual goal. But I think he would have been happy to let Trump take this one and come in 4 years later when Trump is way too old to do this rodeo again after yet another well forbidden topic.
Well, I think that a more statesman, policy oriented person um, is a good follow up to somebody whose primary objective is to flip the table,
Yeah, somebody to set the
provided that the table gets successfully flipped.
yeah. If you could have Trump come in, flip the table, and then DeSantis set up the pieces 4 years later.
Yeah, because somebody's got to put things back on the table once the table's been righted. So
Yeah, after you have taken a blowtorch to the current table, forget flipping it. We need to burn it down. When the new table gets brought in, you need somebody to set up the game board in a way that's fair. And I think DeSantis would have been prime for that.
well, it's all speculative right now. So we will bring you more news on that once primary season begins in earnest and people actually declare their candidacy. Well, people who aren't like ridiculous, irrelevant candidates anyway.
Yeah, like your Nikki Haley's or whatever, or your Liz Cheney's.
Has she actually declared herself?
She said she was running. Uh, I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly her words, but it was a declaration without making an actual declaration.
She's like roughly as popular with Republicans as Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
That seems like a poor move, to
she,
be honest.
she couldn't even win her home state. So yeah, uh, preview of stuff we're thinking about for MPP when Vol gets some time and when a topic finally settles in the popular culture. And because honestly, I've been pretty tuned out of the current events going on. We will and that all picks back up. I'll start working on putting one together, and me and Vol can sit down and find topics for it, and we'll see what we can do. Because it does take a lot more time to research stuff for that and make sure what we tell you is at least semi-accurate. We can't afford to flub anything in those because then we're just as bad as the people calling out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's almost inevitable that you will, because it's like you're trying to fish grains of gold dust out of the sewer, and you're going
Yeah,
to get some grime with them most of the time.
but making an honest effort to get the truth is significantly better than most people do. So we'll look into it. It's always at the a project in the background, uh, and we'll see what we do. That'll be on our Rumble channel, which has thankfully stopped spamming the email box. Finally,
Yeah. So if primaries will begin in the first half of next year, that means that around October-ish this year, we'll be expecting another round of mostly peaceful riots.
yeah, they're about due. They tried to have their setup for one earlier, didn't quite take off. We
Oh,
will,
the subway guy?
yeah, they tried to make that a thing and it didn't
Yeah,
quite
the
stick this
problem is
time.
that all the common people of New York knew that guy. So they didn't want to celebrate his life. They wanted to celebrate that they wouldn't be pushed onto the train tracks anymore.
Yeah, so it is prime time for the current people to do something, and maybe when that happens, we can talk about it and tell you how to avoid not getting mostly peaceful done. So, all right, folks, we're 3 hours in. I think it's time for us to start wrapping up.
Right.
All right. Email topic of the week. I said before. Talk to us about anything you've done in Final Fantasy, because it's our currently active game and it's all we can really comment on significantly and have a way to relate to you if you want to talk with that. Or you can write to us about Doom stuff if you want, Serathis. Tell me how that drama's going.
Ari does love him some drama,
I
especially if it
do.
manages to make it onto the farms.
Yeah, the farms is currently Tor only right now because Jersh broke the server. Well, he didn't break it. He's updating the DDoS protection because Cloudflare dropped them. So to get back on ClearNet, he's got to build his own DDoS protection from scratch. And that's he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's told everybody he doesn't have a clue what he's doing, and he's just got a bunch of autists that he's got to work for free from the farms to come help him. So it's slow going, but it'll be back on ClearNet eventually once he gets it all put together. So, but for now it's Tor only. So you need to open a new window in Tor in the Brave browser and do some googling to find the onion link. So, but it's still there, but it's slow going right now while Josh works on dealing with DDoS stuff because it's always getting DDoS attacked.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I guess Keffels is industriously trying to attempt to be a woman scorned.
yeah. Well, it's a whole bunch of them, but especially that one was a pretty big one. But there are a whole lot of them that don't like their more illicit activities known to the wider public and decide that's a hate crime and that they'll become little internet vigilantes because of it.
I still think that Troon Shine is one of the most hilarious neologisms of our era.
Yes. So yeah. Uh, if you haven't been on the farms, by the way, when it hits the clear net again, I would recommend those of you that are not in Vols country, go give it a look. It's like 4chan in a suit.
Yeah, like if you're in New Zealand and you visit it, you're going to expect to see a GCSB van parked outside. So if you're in New Zealand, I recommend you don't.
Yeah,
Or
if
go
you're
through a VPN at least.
or access the Tor version. They probably can't get you through that one. So Vol gets his farms updates indirectly through me. So yeah. All right, folks. We're gonna wrap it up there. We'll see you next week. Hopefully with a Fern, although I don't know what his wedding stuff's gonna be like. So maybe just be me and Vol again. Um, we'll see. We didn't.
Serious apologies to Fern for running the show so far off the rails yet again, but you shouldn't have abandoned us.
You
We were
knew.
left, and I have a T-shirt and I wore it to the first day of the audit, which just says on the front, "In my defense, I was left unsupervised."
Oh dear. Yep. So this is why we need a Fern. So yeah. We will see you then, folks. Sayonara.